Chapter 66. Guoding Quan and the Jin brothers were extremely gloomy. To Guoding Quan, a master beating a disciple was like a father beating his son. It was completely justified. How could he possibly take revenge? Wouldn't that be deceiving his master? No matter where he went, he would be condemned by thousands. The Jin brothers also knew that the old man who beat them was an expert in both sword and alchemy. His status was extremely high, and even the Dayuan king had to be polite to him. Even if the elders of the Jin clan knew about this, they would definitely not take revenge for them. In other words, they had definitely suffered this beating for nothing. Ling Han. They were all gritting their teeth in their hearts. The main culprit of all this was Ling Han, and they hated him to the core. Young friend Ling, are you alright? Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan both ran over, looking extremely anxious. I'm fine. Ling Han smiled and shook his head. Of course he's fine, everyone said in their hearts. Previously, he had tricked the Jin brothers and Duanmu Changfeng, and now even Duanmu Changfeng was obeying his orders. How could he possibly be fine? However, 2 more black-grade alchemists had arrived, and they were extremely polite to Ling Han. Everyone could not help but twitch their lips, and became even more curious about Ling Han's identity. Who was this guy? The 4th prince's heart beat even faster. He decided that he would pull Ling Han into his camp at all costs. If he had 3 alchemists to cheer for him, then a mere Lu clan would be nothing. The throne of the Dayuan king would definitely be his. Ling Han did not want to stay here any longer, so he stood up and left. Duanmu Changfeng shamelessly followed him to Tianyiji. He still had to ask Ling Han for the last 2 forms of the sweeping cloud sword technique, as well as the diagrams. Regarding this, Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan were both very surprised. They had not thought that Ling Han not only had astonishing achievements in alchemy, but also had extraordinary insights in martial art. He could even give pointers to Duanmu Changfeng, who was known as an expert in both sword and alchemy. Ling Han did not go back on his word. After he returned, he taught the 8th form of the sweeping cloud sword technique to Duanmu Changfeng. What about the 9th stance then? He would definitely not teach it now. He had to prevent Duanmu Changfeng from burning the bridge after crossing the river. At the very least, he would have to wait until Ling Han had broken through to Gushing Spring Tier. Then there would be no harm in teaching him the 9th style. After all, it was only a black-grade middle-level technique, and Ling Han did not care about it at all. Duanmu Changfeng obviously also knew this, so after obtaining the mnemonic chant and diagram of the 8th move, he bid farewell and left. Whether or not he could obtain the 9th move would naturally depend on his performance in the future. After returning to his room, Ling Han quickly fell asleep. Ling Dongxing had no idea how much of a commotion his son had caused that night. However, the people who were qualified to attend the banquet of the 4th prince were not big mouths, so the news about Ling Han was only spread among a very small circle. Early the next morning, an attendant from the king's mansion came to Tianyiji, saying that the Dayuan king had requested an audience with Ling Han. The Dayuan king wanted to see him. Ling Han did not allow Lu Yutong to accompany him, and instead followed the attendant alone to the royal house of the Dayuan king. Very soon he saw this ruler of a region in his study. The Dayuan king was already 60 years old, but because of his high cultivation level, he did not appear old. On the contrary, he was tall and sturdy, and his whole body exuded a powerful aura, displaying the aura of a ruler. The 6th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Ling Han only took a glance, and the other's cultivation level was completely exposed to him. On the path of martial art, every 4th and 7th layer was a threshold. This Dayuan king should have been stuck in this tier for a very long time. Greetings, Dayuan king. Ling Han clasped his hands in greeting. Pardon me. The Dayuan king raised his hand and said with a smile, the youngsters nowadays are really incredible. Not only have they reached the 4th layer of poly at such a young age, they even have 3 black-grade alchemists running circles around them. Even I do not have such an honor. This Dayuan king obviously already knew about what happened yesterday. Ling Han snickered and said, it's just that I have some attainments in alchemy, which is why I have some common topics with Grandmaster Zhu and the others. The Dayuan king naturally would not believe him, but he did not point it out. He was only extremely curious that under his rule, there was actually such a talent that even the 3 great alchemists had to run circles around him. Then what about that girl from the Lu clan? He asked with a smile. Even the matter of Lu Yutong could not be hidden from him. Hee, handsome people are indeed popular, Ling Han said exaggeratedly. Haha. The Da Yuan king pointed at Ling Han, as if reprimanding him for being so slippery. He changed the topic and said, which of my two sons do you think is more suitable to inherit my position? Should he be asked this question? Ling Han smiled and said, the two princes each have their own merits. As for which one is more suitable, I believe that your highness already knows, so there is no need for me to say more. The Da Yuan king once again laughed loudly, and thought to himself, this slippery little fellow's words are watertight. He once again changed the topic and said, I still have a daughter who has not been betrothed. Are you willing to become my son-in-law? Fuck, were all the people of the Da Yuan king's house so direct? Previously, when he had gone to register, the chief butler had also pulled the strings on the spot, and now this father was just as eager. Ling Han hurriedly waved his hands and said, I am completely focused on martial art, and will not consider marriage for the next few years. The Da Yuan king could not help but feel that it was a pity. Even Zhu He Xian, Zhang Wei Shan, and Duanmu Changfeng were extremely respectful towards Ling Han. It was obvious that this youth had astonishing ability in alchemy. If he could become his son-in-law, then it would be of unimaginable help to their branch of alchemy. But since Ling Han had already tactfully rejected him as a king, he naturally would not be so shameless. His daughter was beautiful, and it was not as if she could not get married. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, feel free to look for me. The Da Yuan king gave Ling Han a huge promise. Even if he could not become Ling Han's father-in-law, he still had to maintain a good relationship with him. Thank you, Your Highness, for your kindness. Ling Han accepted this favor. After all, he was still very weak now and needed this kind of help. When he returned to Tianyi, he saw that the fourth prince had already come to visit him, and had been waiting for a long time. This fourth prince had spoken to him for a long time, but there was nothing substantial between them. He was only trying to establish a good relationship with him. Obviously, this fourth prince also knew that his temple was too small, and could not accommodate a great figure like Ling Han. Thus, he was only speaking to him as an equal, and had no intention of taking him in as a subordinate. Ling Han did not mind having another friend. Thus, the two of them naturally conversed happily. After resting for another day, it was finally the day of the Da Yuan tournament. The first step was to draw lots. After confirming the 50 seated candidates, the others were divided into groups by drawing lots, forming 50 small teams. Each team went up to a tournament stage and then began to fight. Those who were still standing on the tournament stage were the top 50 winners of the Da Yuan tournament, and they would be able to obtain a place to enter Huyang University. Ling Han had also obtained a seated spot. This ensured that in the first round of battles, he would not encounter an opponent that was too strong. Of course, no matter how strong his opponent was, he actually had no fear. Big brother Ling. He saw Li Hao and the others waving at him from afar. Chapter 67. A good story. Hu Bo drew his sword. His status was noble, and he was a member of the highest social class below the imperial family of Rain Country. But now, he had actually been wounded by someone. This was something that his dignity could not accept no matter what, and he was even more determined to kill this future king. 5 flashes of sword chi, even among king tiers, he could be considered quite strong. You can't kill me today, and you won't be able to kill me in the future either. You will only die by my hands, Ling Han said darkly. From the moment that Hu Bo had started a massacre in the Ling clan residence, it meant that this person's fate had already been decided, because this was the person he wanted to kill. Hu Bo, what are you doing here? Xiao, a figure flashed, and Lu Yutong appeared. She had originally been studying the 3rd layer of 3E mysterious arts, but when she heard the commotion becoming louder and louder, she finally realized that something was wrong, and immediately leapt out. Her beautiful face was filled with fury, because she had seen Ling Han covered in blood. This caused her heart to involuntarily tighten, and then a strong killing intent rose within her. Anyone who had harmed Ling Han could not be forgiven. However, this Hu Bo was the 7th young master of the Hu clan, and his status was similar to hers. Moreover, he was even stronger than her, so she could not act rashly. Otherwise, she might end up causing Ling Han's death. This was something that she was even more unwilling to do. Yu Tong. Hu Bo immediately withdrew his killing intent, smiled and said, "You've been gone for a few months. I was very worried about you, so I specially came here to take you back." "I don't need you to be nosy," Lu Yutong said coldly. She pointed at the door and said, "You can scram now. Yutong, you can't have fallen for this brat, right?" Hu Bo's eyes swept over, and when he looked at Ling Han, he could not help but be filled with jealousy. "Then this brat is dead for sure. You dare to take a step forward and try." Lu Yutong stood in front of Ling Han, her beautiful face icy cold. "Humph, could it be that you've really fallen for him?" Hu Bo was about to go mad with anger. He and Lu Yutong were both members of the 8 great clans of the imperial capital, and in order to not be oppressed by the imperial family, the 8 great clans would often form alliances through marriage. After Lu Yutong had displayed her powerful talent in martial arts, the other 7 great clans were very interested in marrying her, and Hu Bo was one of the pursuers. Moreover, he himself was very satisfied with her, because Lu Yutong was not only astonishingly talented in martial arts, she was also one of the twin pearls of the imperial capital. Which man did not want to marry her? But he had never imagined that she had only gone out for a short stroll, and her soul had actually been stolen away by a wild brat, a mere country bumpkin. "I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill this little bastard," he said in great fury, and with a leap, he pounced towards Ling Han. "How dare you!" Lu Yutong moved to meet him. Hong! The aura of gushing spring tear exploded madly. Hu Bo exclaimed in surprise, a look of astonishment on his face. "Gushing spring tear? You've broken through to gushing spring tear." He could not help but be astonished. Although everyone knew that Lu Yutong's talent in martial arts was outstanding, but no matter what, she would only be able to break through to gushing spring tear after she was 20 years old. Moreover, a few months ago, Lu Yutong had only been in the 8th layer of element gathering tier. Logically speaking, it would already be very difficult for her to reach the peak period of the 9th layer of element gathering tier by now. If she wanted to break through to gushing spring tier, she would need at least 1 or 2 years of accumulation. However, power could be forcibly increased through alchemical pills, but aura could not be faked. This was definitely gushing spring tier, and he had just broken through not too long ago. Genius, he was really a genius. "Yutong, I've wronged you," he quickly said. Lu Yutong was able to break through to gushing spring tear in such a short period of time. So how could she have had the time to talk about love? She must have come across some kind of fortuitous encounter here, and had been working hard to break through all this time, which was why she had stayed here. "Get lost." Lu Yutong ignored him and raised her palms, launching a terrifying attack. The symbol of gushing spring tear was origin power taking shape. She clapped her palms together, and one giant hand after another formed from origin power, which shot towards Hu Bo. And Hu Bo felt that he was in the wrong. So how could he dare to take on the attack head-on? He only continued to dodge while begging for mercy. However, he was in the peak period of the 1st layer of gushing spring tear, so his power was much higher than Lu Yutong's. Moreover, Lu Yutong had just broken through, so she had no way to familiarize herself with the use of her own power. Thus, he naturally could deal with her with ease. More importantly, gushing spring tear cultivators could cultivate black-grade martial arts techniques, but Lu Yutong had just broken through, so how could she possibly have the time to cultivate? It was even more impossible for her to pose a threat to Hu Bo. "Yutong, calm down. I'll leave, all right? I'll come and find you after we return to the Imperial City." Hu Bo retreated, but before he left, he gave Ling Han a sinister look, and said, "Brat, don't think that you'll be able to get close to me just because you're close to me. Yutong is not someone you can have delusional thoughts about. Otherwise, I'll tear you into a million pieces." Without waiting for Lu Yutong to react, he leaped, and was already far away. Lu Yutong chased after him for a few steps, then gave up. Hu Bo's speed was much faster than hers. "I'm sorry," she said apologetically as she walked over to Ling Han's side. She had allowed Hu Bo to come to the Ling clan residence and start a massacre, yet she had not been able to capture him. "No need to apologize, that guy is mine." Ling Han humphed. At present, he indeed did not have the ability to kill Hu Bo, but he definitely would not wait too long. Lu Yutong knew that Ling Han was a man of his word, so she hurriedly said, Hu clan is one of the 8 great clans of the imperial city. Their power is not inferior to our Lu clan, and they have a powerful warrior of spiritual pedestal tier among their ranks. You definitely cannot be rash. Ling Han had already guessed that Hu Bo's identity was definitely not ordinary. Otherwise, he would not have the right to pursue Lu Yutong. He nodded, smiled, and said, Am I that kind of rash person? Lu Yutong could not help but observe a moment of silence for the Hu clan. Although Ling Han was currently only an element-gathering tier, his natural talent in martial arts was 100 times stronger than her own. Added with his achievements in alchemy, the Hu clan had really provoked a powerful enemy this time. Although there were still many things that needed to be done in the Ling clan, Ling Dongxing still forcibly chased Ling Han out of the clan and ordered him to immediately report to Huyang Academy. Ling Han thought for a moment. He indeed could not be of much help, so he decided to set out. He and Lu Yutong brought Ling Zixian and Hu Niu with them. However, Ling Zixian's parents had both been killed by the Chang clan in the previous massacre. So when Ling Han arrived at the imperial city, he still had to find someone to help take care of the 2 little girls. Now, Hu Niu had gradually gotten used to eating cooked meat, but she was still only interested in eating meat. She did not touch rice or vegetables at all. But now, she was especially clingy towards Ling Han. Whenever she had the time, she would lean against him like a little kitten, resting her little head on his knee. However, this was not because she had withdrawn her wild nature, because she was still extremely fierce towards other people. But because of her relationship with Ling Han, she had become much more amiable towards Lu Yutong and Ling Zixian. At least, she no longer tried to bite the 2 of them. And Ling Han discovered to his surprise that this wild little girl seemed to never have enough to eat. No matter how much food he gave her, she would still be able to easily devour it. And after eating some demonic beast meat, her cultivation level actually skyrocketed, and she very quickly broke through to the 4th layer of body refining tier. She obviously had not awakened her spirit base, and had never practiced any kind of cultivation technique before. This caused Ling Han to be extremely shocked. Power could not possibly appear for no reason. For example, the origin power within a martial artist's body was produced by refining the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Yet Hu Niu did not practice cultivation, so it was obviously not through this method. Then it must be because of the food she had eaten. Could it be that this little girl could directly convert food into origin power? Once this guess came to mind, Ling Han could not help but be shocked. What kind of shocking ability was that? In order to prove this point, Ling Han and Lu Yutong hunted demonic beasts along the way, allowing Hu Niu to eat to her heart's content. Indeed, the more she ate, the faster her power grew. However, there was a limit to this, because her appetite was not a bottomless pit. When the 4 of them arrived at the imperial city, Hu Niu was already shockingly in the 6th layer of body refining tier. This was not as terrifying as Ling Han's cultivation speed, but it was already shocking enough, because she had not awakened her spirit base. Ling Han felt as if he had picked up a treasure. Oh! Chapter 68. Too despicable. Below the stage, Zhu Shui and the other 4 started cursing loudly. No wonder Feng Luo was so confident. He had already bribed the martial artists in his group to work for him. 30+ people teamed up, and this was the 40th group. A seated elite could not possibly be that strong, so it was enough to sweep away all opposition. When the time came, the others would all run off the stage themselves, and the remaining Feng Luo would naturally obtain a place in the top 50. And he naturally would not dream of being in the top 10, or even the first place. After all, the top 50 would be able to enter Huyang University. Too shameless. Unfair. The others below the stage all started shouting. This was blatantly breaking the rules of the tournament. The judge humped coldly and said, "Shut up." Since the rules of the tournament did not state that alliances were not allowed, then Feng Luo's actions were naturally allowed. It could only be said that he had found a loophole in the rules. What kind of power did a powerful warrior of gushing spring tier have? Everyone below the stage shut their mouths. No wonder that guy was so confident. So he had already bribed the people in his group, Zhu Shui said angrily. So many people surrounding him, and at least a dozen of them have reached poly tier. Ling Han can't fight against so many people with just 2 fists. He's in trouble this time. Lu Dong also frowned. Not necessarily. Li Hao shook his head and said, Brother Ling should have already broken through to the 4th layer of poly tier. He also has 4 flashes of sword chi, so it's not impossible for him to win. You have to win, that guy Feng Luo is too despicable. The 5 of them all started cheering for Ling Han. In comparison, Lu Yutong and Ling Dongxing were extremely confident. A flock of sheep added together was just a flock of sheep, so how could they possibly be a match for a mighty lion? Ha, leave this guy for now. Chase the others off the stage. Feng Luo said proudly, and commanded the 30-plus people to start a clean sweep. This was an extremely powerful force. Under their combined attack, they only had to pay the price of 7 people being dragged into the water, and they managed to clear all the outsiders, aside from Ling Han, off the stage. Now it was 29 against 1, and 14 of them were even in poly tier. It's over. Although this kid is a seated expert, he was assigned to the 40th group. This means that he's only at the 4th or 5th layer of poly. That's right. Many ants can kill an elephant. They still have more than 10 poly realm experts. It's really a pity that Feng Luo is a despicable person who is intoxicated by success. Keep your voice down. Although the Feng clan is not a big clan, Feng Luo's elder brother is a famous genius of our Dayuan city. In the last Dayuan tournament, he managed to defeat the 4th prince and become the champion. I heard that he has already broken through to Gushing Spring tier. What Gushing Spring tier is that for real? Of course it's true. No wonder Feng Luo dared to be so arrogant. Listening to the discussions of the people below the stage, Feng Luo was filled with satisfaction. So what if he had broken the rules? What, you guys are not convinced? He challenged the people below the stage. If you have the guts, come and bite me. If you have the guts, you also have a good big brother. The people below the stage all gritted their teeth in hatred. They felt that this guy was really despicable to the bone, making them want to give him a good thrashing. Ling Han, last time you bullied me because you had more people on your side. This time I have so many people on my side, and 1 punch from each of us is enough to make you piss in your pants. If you know what's good for you, immediately kneel down and beg for mercy, and I can consider giving you a few less punches, Feng Luo said, pointing at Ling Han. Last time was it because he had more people on his side, but Ling Han's side still had 7 people. This was called having more people on his side bullying him. This guy was indeed shameless to a certain extent. Ling Han shook his head and said, Come, if I don't quickly throw you off the stage and allow you, a clown, to continue your performance, it will incite the anger of the people. Ha. The people below the stage instantly burst into laughter. What a despicable guy. You still dare to be so stubborn. I will not forgive you. Feng Luo was so angry that he was about to go mad. He stretched out a finger and pointed and said, beat him hard. Yes. Those 20 or so people all rushed towards Ling Han, all of them waving their weapons, looking very fierce and ferocious. The arena battles allowed the use of weapons, or else they would not be able to display their strongest battle strength. However, this also increased the danger. Hence, if you were afraid of death, you should jump off the stage as soon as possible. If you wanted to stay on the stage, you had to be prepared. Ling Han did not even bother to use his sword. With a wave of his fists, he had already rushed out. The dashing leopard fist was more than enough. Pung. He rushed forward, and the people in front of him were all thrown off the stage by his fists. One had to know that although his cultivation level was only at the 4th level of poly, when the 5 elemental origin nuclei exploded, his strength was comparable to the 8th level. Furthermore, the dashing leopard fist was a yellow-grade upper-level martial arts technique. It was more than enough to take care of these people. When Ling Han arrived in front of Feng Luo, everyone else had already been sent flying off the stage. The entire arena was silent. This guy was really too fierce. Since he was the seeded fighter of Group 40, that meant that his cultivation level was at most at the 5th layer of poly. But that fierce stance just now was definitely the power of the late stage of poly. Could it be that he had purposely hidden his cultivation level, and was pretending to be weak to eat the tiger? But there were naturally elders of the various great clans present, and there was no lack of people who were at least at the 5th layer of poly. Naturally, they could easily sense Ling Han's presence. He was indeed only at the 4th layer of poly. This made them all very confused, and they all whispered to each other, exchanging their thoughts. No, impossible. Feng Luo said, trembling, his face filled with disbelief. The script was not supposed to be like this. He should have smoothly entered Huyang University, and then under the care of his elder brother, easily break through to poly tier. If he was lucky enough to eat a spiritual fruit, he might even be able to break through to gushing spring tier. But if he could not enter Huyang University, then everything would be for naught. Arrogant. Continue being arrogant. Ha ha ha. Continue staying up there if you have the guts. The people below booed at Feng Luo. They had long been displeased with this guy. Previously, Feng Luo indeed had the advantage in numbers, but now, who would have thought that Ling Han was actually so fierce? Admit defeat immediately and get off the stage yourself, or else I'll ask my elder brother to deal with you. Amidst the mocking, Feng Luo finally reacted, and actually pointed at Ling Han, issuing a command. Ling Han shook his head. This guy had really been spoiled rotten, and was a complete idiot. Pa! He flew up and kicked Feng Luo's lower abdomen. So, the guy flew off the stage, holding his lower abdomen and crying out in pain. Even tears were flowing out of his eyes. Group 40 Ling Han wins, the referee announced. No, this spot is mine. It's mine. Feng Luo actually jumped up upon hearing this, and said to the referee, change the decision immediately, or else I'll ask my elder brother to beat you to death. The crowd below instantly broke out in laughter. A mere martial artist in body refining tier actually dared to threaten a martial artist in gushing spring tier. What a joke. Get lost. That referee humped coldly, and with a wave of his hand, his origin power transformed into a large hand, which grabbed Feng Luo and threw him off the stage. Oh! Chapter 69. Origin Power Taking Shape. This was the mark of a powerful warrior of gushing spring tier. Amidst the mocking laughter, Feng Luo ran away dejectedly. If it was not for the fact that his brother Feng Yan was indeed a genius, that powerful warrior of gushing spring tier could have killed him on the spot. The most important thing in martial art was respect. Feng Luo's previous actions were extremely disgraceful, and even if he was killed, the Feng clan would not dare to say anything. Brother Ling, congratulations. Congratulations, Brother Ling. You've given birth to a good son. Brother Ling, you must treat us well this time. On the stage, many of the important figures of the clans of the town began to congratulate Ling Dongxing. Ling Dongxing naturally laughed loudly, feeling extremely happy. Before this, he had also imagined this scene, but he knew that it was only an unrealistic dream. He had never thought that there would come a day when it would come true. Ha 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 ha, this damn brat is just lucky to have obtained a place to enter Huyang University. It should be impossible for him to advance any further. He shook his head, as if he was being very modest. Actually, anyone could see that he was smiling so widely that the corners of his mouth were about to split. Obviously, he was so pleased with himself that he was about to forget himself. True, whoever gave birth to a son who could obtain the right to enter Huyang University would also be able to smile so proudly. Brother Ling, there's no need to be modest. For people like us who came from this town, being able to enter the top 50 is already very impressive. Moreover, your son is only 17 this year, and will be able to participate in the Daiyuan tournament in 3 or 6 years' time. Who knows, he might be able to enter the top 10 in the next tournament, or first in the tournament after that, someone said with a laugh. Although Ling Han had fought this battle beautifully, his opponent was still too weak. No one would think that a mere martial artist in the 4th layer of element gathering tier would be able to fight his way into the top 10, let alone defeat a martial artist in the 9th layer of element gathering tier like the 4th prince. Ling Dongxing snickered. He naturally could not say that his son was filled with great ambitions, and this time, he was directly aiming for the first place. To be honest, he did not dare to believe it either. After all, the difference in cultivation level was too great. Ling Han walked down from the tournament stage, and the crowd all stepped forward to offer their congratulations. After all, those who were able to enter into Huyang University were all people with great potential. Who knows, they might be able to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, and become an important person in Rain Country who could command the wind and summon the rain. Therefore, no one would mind saying a few compliments at this time. Anyway, there was no loss, right? And if Ling Han achieved great success in the future, they could use this to build a friendship. As the head of a family, Ling Dongxing naturally had no problem with this kind of social intercourse. He took care of everything, making everyone feel that they were absolutely valued. The father and son, together with Lu Yutong, returned to Tianyi. After a night's rest, the battle of the top 50 would begin the next day. The top 10 would actually receive rewards. Of course, the higher the ranking, the better the reward. On the other hand, Li Hao had also fought his way into the top 50, and with his saber qi, he had shown brilliantly, making everyone feel very optimistic about his future prospects. That was because in the entire Deyuan city of this generation, there were no more than 10 people who had managed to form qi. However, the elders of the Li clan had also come, so they naturally had to celebrate with their own people at night. Thus, they did not invite Ling Han, nor did they invite Lu Dong and the others. However, when they returned to Guarak town, the Li clan would definitely hold a grand celebration banquet. The next day, accompanied by Ling Dongxing and Lu Yutong, Ling Han once again arrived at the tournament stage in the city. Meanwhile, Zhu He Xian and Zhang Weishan were busy concocting return origin pills, and had long since entered a state of forgetfulness. Thus, they did not come to watch Ling Han's battle. Big brother Ling. Li Hao walked over and stood shoulder to shoulder with him. Then he looked at the fourth prince, Li Dongyu, and the others with a respectful gaze. In the past, they were idols that he could only look up to, but he had never thought that he would now be able to compete on the same stage as them. This made him indescribably excited. Don't feel inferior. You have already formed saber qi, and in the future, your achievements will definitely surpass them, Ling Han said as he patted his shoulder. And Li Hao nodded heavily. Actually, the only difference between him and the fourth prince and the others was the difference in cultivation level. Now that he had formed saber qi, he would also be able to become a king amongst those of the same cultivation level in the future. Brother Ling. When Ling Han walked over, the fourth prince and the others all clasped their hands in greeting and greeted him. Li Hao could not help but gape. This Ling Han was really too popular, wasn't he? It was as if he was the moon surrounded by stars. Even the fourth prince was not so popular. That was natural. There were currently 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind Ling Han. From a certain perspective, he was even more awesome than the Deyuan king. The top 10 battles will now begin. The chief butler appeared. His eyes were narrowed, and he looked very old and clumsy, but his voice was extremely loud and clear, spreading to every corner of the wrestling ring. The rules are very simple. There are 10 tournament stages here, and you can choose any one of them to ascend. If there is no one up there, you will be the champion of the tournament, and if there is someone up there, you will have to attack. Everyone will only have one chance to attack. At sunset, the 10 people who are still on the tournament stage will be the top 10. This was indeed simple, they just had to fight. When the chief butler finished speaking, the majority of the people's gazes turned towards the fourth prince, Li Dongyu, and the others. They possessed absolute strength, and if the others wanted to obtain a place in the top 10, then they would definitely have to avoid these powerful warriors. The fourth prince laughed loudly, and his king's qi burst forth. With a leap, he had already arrived on the first tournament stage. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, waiting for others to challenge him. I'll show my incompetence first. Li Dongyu leapt onto the second tournament stage. Jin Wuji, Bailey Tengyuan, Xia Zhongguang, and the others each took their own tournament stage. In an instant, 7 tournament stages had already been claimed. These people all had absolute confidence in themselves, and did not mind being challenged by others in succession. Ling Han lifted his leg, and was also about to enter the tournament stage. Brother Ling, let's wait until the afternoon. That way we'll have a better chance, Li Hao hurriedly advised. Haha, don't worry. There aren't many people here who are a match for me. Ling Han waved his hand, and with a leap, he landed on the 8th tournament stage. Immediately after, the 9th and 10th tournament stages were also occupied. At this point, the 10 champions had already appeared, and it was now up to who would challenge them. I'll go. Someone jumped onto the 10th tournament stage, and began the first challenge. Immediately after, a second person jumped onto the 9th tournament stage, But what made the spectators feel strange was that no one actually challenged Ling Han. There was no lack of experts in the 9th layer of Poly, so they could naturally tell that Ling Han was only in the 4th layer of Poly. Logically speaking, this cultivation level should be the lowest among the 10 champions, so why did no one challenge him? They did not understand, but among those who had entered the top 50, the majority had attended the 4th Prince's banquet a few days ago, and knew that Ling Han had 3 black-grade alchemists as his backing. Who would dare to challenge him? Were they not giving face to the 3 alchemists? In any case, aside from the 4th Prince, Li Dongyu, and other absolute elites, there were still 2 or 3 people who were slightly weaker. No matter what, they could not poke the hornet's nest that was Ling Han. But there was still an exception. "I'll challenge you." A young man leapt onto Ling Han's tournament stage. He was a dark horse that had suddenly appeared in this tournament, so he had not received an invitation from the 4th Prince a few days ago. Naturally, he did not know of Ling Han's background. Chapter 70. My name is Du Zhongying. Remember my name because not long from now, this name will shake the world, the young man said proudly. This person was about 20 years old, and his cultivation level was at the 6th layer of Poly. It was unknown where he got his confidence from. However, only he knew that 2 years ago, he was only in the 9th layer of body refining tier, unable to break through to Poly tier. However, he had a fortuitous encounter, and his cultivation level soared, advancing into the 6th layer of Poly tier in 2 years. After reaching the heavens in a single step, he naturally looked down on everything and believed that he would be able to reach the 9th layer of Poly tier in the next year, and then break through to Gushing Spring tier in the next year, surpassing all the geniuses in the world. Ling Han smiled calmly and said, "I'm bored anyway, so I'll play with you." Impudence. Du Zhongying flew out. Chong, the long saber at his waist flashed, and as the saber flashed, the cold air was like frost. With a loud shout he swung the saber, which turned into a terrifying cold light, slashing towards Ling Han's waist. The sword moved nimbly, and the saber moved fiercely. This slash was both fierce and ruthless, and had some level of skill. Ling Han drew his sword, and with a ding the tip of the sword sliced through the saber's tip, creating intense sparks, all the way to the hilt of the saber, easily dispelling the great force of this slash. Du Zhongying's saber stopped 3 inches below Ling Han's ribs, but the momentum had been exhausted, and there was no longer any threat. "You have some ability," Du Zhongying humphed. "However, in front of me, all this is just a waste of effort. I am a genius destined to be famous throughout the world, and everyone else is just a stepping stone on my path, and will only be ruthlessly swept away by me." He attacked again. Shwa shwa shwa, the saber flashed, and the momentum was not weak. The audience below the stage was speechless. They had seen many arrogant people, but Du Zhongying was no longer arrogant, but arrogant to the point that he didn't even know how much he was worth. Ling Han parried the attacks casually. Anyways, the arena battle would only end at sunset, so there was no difference whether he defeated Du Zhongying earlier or later. Du Zhongying shouted and unleashed all her ultimate moves, gaining the upper hand on the battlefield. Naturally, he thought that this was a matter of course. His opponent was only at the 4th level of Poly, which was 2 levels lower than him. How could he be a match for him? Naturally, only he could do such a magnificent feat as challenging someone of a higher level. "Ha ha, not bad, not bad. I admit that you're not bad. But that's as far as you can go. I'm going to get serious now." Du Zhongying laughed loudly, making everyone feel like he was an idiot. His expression became solemn, and he swung his saber again. Shwa, a streak of saber chi actually slashed out. "E.N." The audience immediately cried out in alarm. "Saber chi? No way, this is the king's expedition. I didn't expect this egomaniac to actually have some strength. This time Ling Han probably won't be able to hold on. I heard that among the youngsters of this generation, there are less than 10 who can control chi." Du Zhongying was immensely pleased with himself. If he hadn't cultivated blade chi, he wouldn't have dared to be so high profile. He laughed loudly and said, "You should feel honored to be able to force me to use blade chi." Ling Han shook his head and said disappointedly, "Only 1 streak of blade chi? Hey, what kind of expression is that?" Du Zhongying was extremely annoyed that 1 streak of blade chi wasn't awesome enough. When he unleashed his blade chi, Wouldn't this brat be scared shitless? It's enough to defeat you 100 times. He shouted loudly. His saber danced and blade chi swept out. Its destructive power was incomparably terrifying. Ling Han laughed and casually slashed out with his sword, also releasing a streak of sword chi. Everyone below the stage choked. Once one had cultivated chi, they would have the potential to become a king of martial art. But generally speaking, for streaks of chi were considered small success, 7 streaks were considered the great Tao, and 10 streaks were considered complete. Only those who had reached small success had the qualifications to be called a king. But even if it was just 1 streak of chi, it was still an extremely amazing and rare thing. Thus, now that 2 people who had cultivated chi had appeared on the same stage, this naturally caused the audience to cry out in surprise. No matter what, it would only happen tomorrow when they fought for first place. What, you actually have sword chi? Du Zhengying's eyes bulged out, and he seemed extremely shocked. Is that so strange? Ling Han laughed. So what if you have sword chi? You're definitely not my opponent. Du Zhengying raised his saber and got into a fighting stance. The fortuitous encounter he had had included a saber manual and a bottle of elixirs. The elixirs had allowed him to break through to the poly stage, and his cultivation had soared. The saber manual was not simple either, and it was divided into 2 stages. The first stage was yellow level upper grade, and the second stage was black level lower grade. He was only in the poly stage, so naturally he had only mastered the first stage. But it had allowed him to form blade chi, which was enough to show how powerful this saber technique was. Mountain-breaking saber technique. He roared and slashed out with his saber. The blade chi was like a dragon, dazzling and incomparably terrifying. Ling Han slanted his sword and activated the shocking electricity sword technique. Sword chi exploded out. Bang! The sword chi and blade chi collided, and suddenly there was a dazzling explosion. The blade chi was actually shattered, and the sword chi was like a rainbow, cutting into Du Zhengying's chest. Immediately a stream of blood spurted out. Ah! Du Zhengying screamed, and his whole body was sent flying by the sword chi, directly off the stage. Hiss! Everyone was shocked. Everyone had cultivated chi, so why was there such a big difference in power? Only a few people who had also cultivated chi knew that chi was divided into strong and weak, and it was not something that could be cultivated. However, no matter how weak chi was still chi. It could not possibly be so weak, or else it would not have been so difficult to cultivate. This could only mean one thing. Ling Han's sword chi was too domineering. Even the 4th prince, Li Dongyu, and the other arena masters who were ranked in front all revealed shocked expressions. This kind of attack power even surprised them. However, they thought that their stage was much higher than Ling Han's, and they could completely suppress him with a stronger force. Such an easy victory also made Ling Han's image suddenly rise, letting everyone know that he was not as simple as just having 3 alchemists as his backing. The challenges continued, and most people had their eyes on the 9th and 10th arena. Those 2 arena masters were the weakest, and under the continuous battles, they would also expend a lot of energy. This was the best way to squeeze into the top 10. When the sun set, the top 10 had all been decided. This time there were no dark horses. The top 10 was mostly within expectations. Although Li Hao had fought with all his might, his low stage was a major drawback. He could barely stand against the 4th layer of poly, and if he was any stronger, he could only die with regret. Ling Dongxing once again became the target of the crowd. Most people did not think that Ling Han could actually fight his way into the top 10. This was a great honor, and he might even have the chance to become a powerful warrior of Gushing Spring tier in the future. This naturally made Ling Dongxing very happy. He was the happiest that his son could achieve such an achievement. If he advanced a step further tomorrow, he would be able to obtain the Dark Moon Grass. Ling Han was filled with anticipation. Chapter 71. In the world of alchemy, if the quality of a completed pill reached a certain standard, then it would be rated as 10 stars. If the effect exceeded the standard, then it would be rated as 11 stars or 12 stars. Generally speaking, it would not exceed 20 stars. If the quality did not reach the standard, then it would be rated as 1 to 9 stars. Anything below 1 star would be considered a useless pill. Hiss, even if I refine low-tier pills, I can only reach 12 stars at most, Fu Yuansheng exclaimed. Li Xichan's face was filled with disbelief. She could also be considered a genius in the field of alchemy. Otherwise, she would not have been accepted as a personal disciple by Wu Songlin. But the majority of the completed pills she refined were only 10 stars, which was barely enough. A small number were 9 stars and a small number were 11 stars. Moreover, the storm pill was considered one of the most difficult pills to concoct among yellow-grade middle-level pills. For example, she had already been concocting it for a month, but every time her furnace would explode. It was clear how difficult it was to concoct it. This kind of pill, as long as it could be successfully concocted, it would be considered a success. Even if it was only 3 or 4 stars, there would be a huge market for it. 13 stars would definitely be fought over. This guy was really not boasting. He had really concocted the storm pill, and the quality of the completed pill was even higher than Wu Songlin's. The storm pill that Wu Songlin had concocted was only 8 stars, and at most 9 stars. Could it be that Master had really been wrong? Young man. Wu Songlin's eyes shone with a golden light. His expression was completely on par with Hu Niu's. In an instant, he had dashed in front of Ling Han, grabbed his hand and said, "What you used just now was 3 fire guide?" Ling Han nodded. Wu Songlin and Fu Yuansheng both sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. This was something that only existed in legends. What did a young man who knew how to use 3 fire guides signify? Young man, take me as your master, and I guarantee that you will at least become an earth-grade alchemist, Wu Songlin immediately said. Hearing his words, Fu Yuansheng naturally understood that Ling Han had nothing to do with Wu Songlin at all. He hurriedly squeezed his way over, and said, No, take me as your master. I am the pavilion master of Heaven's Medicine Pavilion of Rain Country, and have countless resources in my hands. You can concoct whatever pill you want. Bullshit, old man Fu. You have to know that this is the territory of my Huyang Academy, and you are trying to poach from me. Wu Songlin was instantly enraged. This young man was obviously a rare genius of alchemy that only appeared once in 1,000 years. Just by looking at the storm pill, it was obvious that it was a pill with 13 stars. That was practically unprecedented. What do you mean poach from you? You don't even know what this young man's name is, and you still say that he is your man. Fu Yuansheng snorted, and the moment he turned around, his face was all smiles. Young man, what is your name? Li Xichan was already stunned. These two were the strongest alchemists in Rain Country, and no matter which of them announced that they wanted to take him as their disciple, it was guaranteed that the line of people would stretch from the east gate of the imperial city all the way to the west gate. But now, the two of them were actually fighting over who wanted to take Ling Han as their disciple, and had even almost gotten into a fight. How could she not be shocked? Moreover, she was even feeling a little jealous. I am Ling Han said. I am a new student who has entered Huyang Academy this year. Did you hear that? This is a disciple of my academy. Wu Songlin was very proud of himself, and waved his hand at Fu Yuansheng. I will not accompany you to drink wine today. You had better hurry back to your Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. So what if he is a student of your Huyang Academy? There is no conflict between that and taking me as his master. Fu Yuansheng did not mind at all, and continued to speak to Ling Han. Young man, what do you say? This is my disciple. Old man Fu, do you want to fight with me? Wu Songlin was furious. I am definitely going to fight for this disciple. Fu Yuansheng was not to be outdone. Are you going to disregard our friendship of over 10 years? Pei, you are the one who insists on fighting with me. The two old men's necks were thick, and it looked like they were about to start a fight. Master, you two can take him as your disciple together. Li Xichan interrupted. That's right. The two old men were startled at the same time. How could they not have thought of such a simple method? They both walked towards Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, I think the two of you are still unable to teach me. This, what arrogance! Li Xichan was so shocked that her small mouth was agape. Who was Wu Songlin and Fu Yuansheng? The two strongest alchemists of Rain Country were still unable to teach him? Although you have concocted a 13-star storm pill, the storm pill was still only a yellow-grade mid-level pill after all. Wu Songlin and Fu Yuansheng also looked displeased. Although this young man was a genius, he was really too proud. This kind of person might shine for a while, but he would definitely not be able to achieve too much. Ling Han smiled and said, "The two of you, we can discuss and compare notes with each other." These words of his were actually spoken very modestly. As the former alchemy emperor, putting aside the fact that these two were only black-grade high-level alchemists, even if it was an earth-grade high-level alchemist in front of him, they would only be able to stand respectfully and listen respectfully. But Wu Songlin and Fu Yuansheng did not know this, and the displeasure on their faces became even stronger. Ling Han only acted as if he had not seen them, and began to speak casually. These were all some general knowledge of alchemy. However, his current cultivation level had indeed dropped, and it was impossible for him to concoct high-level alchemical pills, but in terms of theoretical knowledge, who could compare to him? The two alchemists who had been absent-minded in the beginning gradually became more cautious. Occasionally, they would also speak out in discussion, but as they spoke, they became the ones asking for advice, and unceasingly asked Ling Han some difficult questions about alchemy. Li Sichan stood at the side, her face already numb from shock. This young man was obviously even younger than she was, so how could he have such shocking insights about alchemy? If one did not know him and did not hear his voice, anyone would think that he was an old alchemist. She, too, had astonishing talent in alchemy, which was why she had been taken as a disciple by Wu Songlin. Moreover, she was extremely beautiful, and together with Lu Yutong, they were known as the twin beauties of the imperial city. The number of people who pursued her could line up a few laps around the imperial city. But when the two of them were compared, she practically looked like an alchemist's assistant who had not even started cultivating yet. As she listened on the side, the admiration she felt for Ling Han grew stronger and stronger. She could not help but sigh. There were indeed geniuses in this world. If that was not the case, how could he possibly surpass her master in alchemy at such a young age? As expected, there is no such thing as advice from one's elders. Those who are capable can be teachers. Fu Yuansheng was the first to sigh. At first I had thought that young friend was arrogant and conceited, but I had never thought that the arrogant and conceited one would be me. Young friend's understanding of alchemy has already far surpassed mine. In future, you will definitely become an earth-grade alchemist, or even a heaven-grade alchemist. After hearing young friend's words, I feel that the door to becoming an earth-grade alchemist has already been opened wide. If you completely understand young friend's insights just now, you will definitely be able to step into it. Wu Songlin also sighed. He stood up, gave a long bow to Ling Han and said, "Many thanks, young friend." "Many thanks, young friend." Fu Yuansheng also stood up and bowed to Ling Han. Because of the special nature of alchemists, these two could be said to be the people with the highest status in Rain Country, second only to the Rain Emperor. But now, both of them were actually bowing to a young man. This was a treatment that even the Rain Emperor had not enjoyed before. If news of this spread out, probably no one would believe it, right? Chapter 72. When it came to the Staff of Slaughter, even Ling Han revealed a cautious expression. After a martial artist reached spiritual ocean tier, he would be able to use his own origin power to refine his weapon, causing the weapon's power to increase explosively. The higher the martial artist's cultivation level, the more powerful the weapon he used would be. For example, the weapon used by a powerful warrior of heaven tier could even kill a warrior of deity transformation tier. If only I could find the Cloud Dragon sword from my last life. With this sword I would be able to sweep through Rain Country, Ling Han thought, but he immediately laughed. With his current ability, he could not even get close to the 100-meter range of the Cloud Dragon sword. Otherwise, he would definitely be blown apart by the aura of the Heaven Tier warrior. However, even if I could obtain the Cloud Dragon sword now, I would not use it. Otherwise, there would be no point in training my body. While he was thinking, Bailey Tongyun and Jin Wuji had also begun a fierce battle. The Staff of Slaughter was indeed very powerful. Under the infusion of spiritual power, multiple symbols actually lit up on the body of the staff. However, these symbols should be all over the body of the staff, but now only a few of them were lit up. With the powerful assistance of the Staff of Slaughter, Bailey Tongyun instantly turned the situation around, but it was far from enough to win. Even so, it still caused everyone to gasp in shock at the power of the Staff of Slaughter. as expected of a weapon used by a powerful warrior. I heard that this kind of weapon is called a spirit tool. It is as if it has its own intelligence and can help the user increase their battle prowess. Unfortunately, it needs to be refined by a warrior of at least spiritual ocean tier. In the whole of Deyuan City, only His Royal Highness has this ability. According to what you've said, doesn't that mean that everyone in the royal house of the Deyuan King has a spirit tool? How is that possible? First of all, this weapon must be able to withstand the origin power of a warrior of spiritual ocean tier. Otherwise, if it were to be penetrated by such powerful origin power day and night, it would very quickly shatter. Moreover, to become a spirit tool, it would need to be nourished by a warrior of spiritual ocean tier for at least 20 years. Think about it, how old was the Deyuan King when he broke through to spiritual ocean tier? Even if there were enough materials, how many spirit tools could the Royal Highness forge? I see. However, Ling Han shook his head. This slaughter rod might have been extraordinary in the past, but now it was too badly damaged. The spirit markings on it were about to be completely obliterated, and its power was already less than 100%. However, in a place like Deyuan City, even a damaged spiritual weapon would cause a huge commotion. After all, just the materials used to make the spiritual weapon were extremely valuable. The two young men fought back and forth fiercely. In terms of strength, Jin Wuji had the absolute advantage. However, Bailey Tungyun had a spirit tool in his hands. Even though it was only a broken spirit tool, it still possessed a powerful might, allowing him to stand on equal footing with Jin Wuji. After the two of them fought for hundreds of rounds, Jin Wuji still relied on his rich experience to obtain victory. On the other hand, after Bailey Tungyun suffered this defeat, he could only be ranked 4th in this competition. He was quite dissatisfied with this, but the others thought that it was already impressive enough. After all, Bailey Tungyun was only 18 this year. In the next Deyuan tournament, or the one after that, who would be able to compete with him? However, Jin Wuji had won even more praise. As expected of Jin Wuji, he is really too powerful. Even a spiritual weapon cannot suppress him. Come, Li Dongyu is no longer a match for him. I wonder who is stronger, him or the 4th prince? If it was before, I would definitely think that it would be the 4th prince. But now, I think that Jin Wuji also has a very high chance of winning. And I think so too. After his battle with Bailey Tungyun, Jin Wuji's reputation had risen to another level. He had already surpassed Li Dongyu, and was now on par with the 4th prince. This also caused Li Dongyu to feel great regret. If she had known this would happen, she would have gone to Huyang University 3 years ago. Jin Wuji began to recover. Very soon, he would issue a challenge to Li Dongyu, and then face the 4th prince. The others also issued their challenges. Ling Han did not remain idle either. Because there was a limit of half an hour to rest, he had to make good use of his time. He did not want the first two to fight for too long. If they kept him waiting, he would not have the time to fight for first place. He issued a challenge to the 7th ring. This was a young man around 20 years old. He carried a long sword on his back. His figure was tall and slender, and he appeared to be quite elegant. The most common weapons used by martial artists were sabers and swords. However, the higher one's cultivation level was, the more strange and exotic weapons one would have. For example, there were umbrellas, towers, mirrors, and even pens. With a wave of these weapons, rivers and mountains could be split apart, and their power was astonishing. I am Lien Tao. Brother Ling, please instruct me, the young man said, cupping his hands. Please. Ling Han also cupped his hands. Ha! Lien Tao drew his sword, becoming one with it as he flew towards Ling Han. Poly level 7 Ling Han was fearless, and he raised his sword to meet him. Although he was at the 4th layer of poly level with the addition of the 5 elements origin nuclei, his power was comparable to the 8th layer of poly level. He was no longer weaker than his opponent. Moreover, he also had the lone wolf blood, which could further increase his power. In terms of power, he would definitely not lose to the 9th layer of poly level 9. Otherwise, he would not have dared to pat his chest and say that he would take first place. Ding 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 ding, the two of them fought fiercely. Their swords continuously clashed and sparks flew. Lien Tao was able to fight his way into the top 10 because his cultivation level was high enough, but he could not be considered a genius. That was because he had not formed sword chi. And the sword technique he used was only yellow grade low level. In fact, it had only reached the level of small mastery. The advantage of having a high cultivation level was that his power was strong. But now, his power was not even comparable to Ling Han, so how could he have any chance of winning? After a few moves, he was already completely at a disadvantage. This person has 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind him, and it is impossible for me to get first place anyway. Then, there is no difference between 7th and 8th. I might as well do him a favor and directly admit defeat, so that he can save some origin power, Lien Tao thought. He suddenly retreated, sheathed his sword and said, I am not a match for Brother Ling, I admit defeat. He admitted defeat just like that? When Ling Han noticed that his opponent was smiling deliberately, he could not help but suddenly realize that his opponent was doing him a favor on purpose. He could not help but laugh. If he really went all out, he would be able to kill his opponent in a single move. But regardless of whether he needed it or not, he had still done him a favor, so he nodded at Lien Tao. The two of them switched arenas. Ling Han did not rest. This battle did not consume much of his origin power at all, so he immediately issued a challenge to the 6th arena. The arena master was Xia Zhongguang, a genius that had appeared in the last 2 years. He had a cultivation level of the 8th layer of Poly. Brother Ling, please, Xia Zhongguang said very politely. Although he was young and proud and thought very highly of himself, there were 3 black-grade alchemists behind Ling Han, so he obediently put away his arrogance. Please, Ling Han also said politely. Respect between people was mutual. The two of them attacked at the same time. Xia Zhongguang used a spear, and he had also formed spear qi. The metal spear that was 12 meters long swung out with domineering power, fully displaying the characteristic of an inch longer, an inch stronger. Chapter 73. Ling Han displayed the shocking electricity sword art. He did not show any weakness, nor was he at a disadvantage. Xia Zhongguang was indeed very strong. With a shake of his spear, he actually shot out 2 streams of spear qi. His gasps of surprise resounded from below. 2 streams of qi. Amongst the younger generation of Diyuan City, Xia Zhongguang could be said to be outstanding. This was because Xia Zhongguang was really too young, he was only 18 years old. When he was the same age as the 4th prince, Li Dongyu and Jin Wuji, how many flashes of qi would he be able to form? 3 or even 4 flashes of qi. He would truly be able to advance into the ranks of king tiers. 2. Ling Han smiled faintly, and with a shake of his sword, he also struck out 2 sword qis. Puff! The crowd once again choked. Before they could recover from their shock, another shock arose. Ling Han had actually managed to form the 2nd flash of sword qi. Could it be that Diyuan City was going to rise to prominence? Geniuses were popping up one after another. Xia Zhongguang was also very surprised. The first qi was indeed cultivated by him, but the second qi was because he accidentally entered an ancient tomb and touched a strange stone tablet. At that time he fainted and experienced many memories that did not belong to him. After that, he inexplicably cultivated the 2nd spear qi. Could it be that Ling Han also had such a fortuitous encounter? Otherwise it would be too shocking. To be able to form 2 flashes of sword qi at the age of 17. He was simply a monster. Xia Zhongguang attacked for a long time, but to no avail, and could not help but feel discouraged. When he thought of the previous Lien Tao, he could not help but think, this person has 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind him, and I am obviously not a match for the 4th prince. Then what difference is there between the 6th and the 7th? Why not do him a favor? Thinking up to this point, he decisively stopped and said, Brother Ling's strength is extraordinary, I admit defeat. Why did he admit defeat again? Wasn't it obvious that they were evenly matched? Apart from those who had attended the banquet at the 4th prince's place a few days ago, everyone else was puzzled. However, Ling Han had revealed 2 flashes of sword qi in this battle, and his strength was indeed stronger than Lien Tao's. Lien Tao's previous decision to admit defeat could also be attributed to his foresight. Could it be that Ling Han was actually stronger than what he had shown so far? Was that why Xia Zhongguang had admitted defeat? Ling Han shook his head and said with a smile, Brother Xia is too modest. I wish Brother Ling the best of luck. Let's get to know each other better in the future. Xia Zhongguang leaped onto the 7th arena. At this moment, Jin Wuji also issued a challenge to Li Dongyu. Without any suspense, in just 10 moves, Li Dongyu was defeated by Jin Wuji. This caused everyone to look forward to joining Huyang University even more. With this drive, Jin Wuji issued a challenge to the 4th prince. Ling Han was not interested in watching the battle. After a short rest, he continued to challenge the 5th ring. The champion of the 5th arena was Lu Yu, a genius who had appeared in the past 2 years. Because the 2 major battles were taking place at almost the same time, most people were focused on the battle between the 4th prince and Jin Wuji. Only people like Ling Dongxing, Lu Yutong, and Li Hao were paying attention to Ling Han. "Brother Ling, please." Lu Yu was also very polite. It could be said that in the whole of Rain Country, there was no one who would dare to ignore a black-grade alchemist, what more when there were as many as 3 of them standing behind Ling Han. "Please." Ling Han waved his sword and sent out 2 flashes of sword chi. Since he had already revealed a part of his strength, there was no need for him to continue hiding his strength. Lu Yu and Xia Zhongguang's strength could be said to be on par. Since Xia Zhongguang was no match for Ling Han, Lu Yu was naturally no match for him either. After fighting for a few dozen rounds, Lu Yu could not help but think, there are 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind this person, and I won't be able to get first place anyway, so why not do him a favor? Thus, Lu Yu very readily admitted defeat. Thankfully, everyone's attention was attracted by the battle between the 4th prince and Jin Wuji. Otherwise, there would definitely be people who would suspect that the competition was rigged. Ling Han's rank moved up another level, and in front of him were only Bailey Tungyun, Li Dongyu, Jin Wuji, and Qi Yongyi. Who could have imagined this before the competition? Ling Dongxing could not help but become excited. If Ling Han could still defeat Bailey Tungyun, then he would have the right to battle with Jin Wuji and the 4th prince. Obtaining first place would definitely not be a pipe dream. The battle between Qi Yongyi and Jin Wuji was still ongoing. The 2 young geniuses had both revealed their powerful sides. One used his palms, the other used his fists. They had both cultivated out qi, and had as many as 3 flashes at that. They had already begun to show the demeanor of a king tier. It was at this moment that Ling Han issued a challenge to Bailey Tungyun. Ling Dongxing was even more nervous now. If Ling Han could win this battle, then he would undoubtedly defeat Li Dongyu and ascend to the 3rd place. Top 3, that was already good enough. Could he still ask for more? "Brother Ling." Bailey Tungyun was also very courteous towards Ling Han. He did not even put on the airs of a young sect master. In fact, he was even more cordial towards Ling Han than he was towards the 4th prince. After all, if the 4th prince did not ascend to the position of the Dayuan king, then his status would not even be comparable to Bailey Tungyun's, because the 1st prince would definitely try his best to suppress him. But it was different for Ling Han. He had 3 black-grade alchemists behind him. "Please, please." The 2 of them exchanged pleasantries. Bailey Tungyun directly drew out his staff of slaughter and said, "Brother Ling is very powerful. If I do not use my full strength, then it would be disrespectful to Brother Ling, haha. Then let me also experience the power of a spiritual tool," Ling Han said with a smile. He shook his sword lightly, emitting a light ringing sound. "Be careful." Bailey Tungyun rode on his black staff and suddenly charged over. The 7 seals on his staff lit up one by one, and half a black skull appeared, pouncing menacingly towards Ling Han. This black skull contained a sliver of a powerful warrior's will. At first, it was enough to pose a threat to a martial artist of Gushing Spring tier, directly shattering the soul of a martial artist of Poly tier. However, because too much time had passed, this spiritual tool was already very badly damaged. Its power was no longer as great as it once was, and this skull could only affect a martial artist of Poly tier to a limited extent. However, if that was not the case, Bailey Tungyun would not have the chance to use this spiritual tool. Although Ling Han was no longer a martial artist of heaven tier like he had been in his last life, and only a sliver of his divine sense remained, heaven tier was still heaven tier. Even if it was only a sliver, it was still extremely powerful. This black skull could not affect him in the slightest. He used the lightning sword technique. Sword shadows were like rainbows. Ding 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 ding. The sword and staff continuously clashed and rubbed against each other. 2 flashes of sword chi danced about, and Ling Han did not seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Quick, quick, Ling Han is battling with Bailey Tung Yun. What, he's actually so strong. No wonder Xia Zhongguang and the others admitted defeat earlier. So they already knew how strong Ling Han was. My goodness, when did such a freak appear? He's obviously only in the 4th layer of polytier, but he's actually this strong. More and more people turned their attention to the battle. They felt that one pair of eyes was not enough to take in everything. They were thinking about the ultimate battle between the 4th prince and Jin Wuji, as well as the battle between Ling Han and Bailey Tung Yun. It was more refreshing to read on one's phone. Chapter 74. A good story. Only a limited number of people knew that Ling Han's battle prowess had not reached its peak, because he had only used 2 flashes of sword chi, and his limit was 4. Only Ling Han knew that he had not activated the lone wolf's blood. In reality, his battle prowess could still increase by another level. This was mainly because his divine sense was strong enough, so the might of the Staff of Death was almost negligible. Moreover, with Bailey Tung Yun's own strength, he was even weaker than Li Dongyu, so how could he possibly be a match for Ling Han? In the intense battle between the two geniuses, Ling Han was gradually gaining the upper hand. Hey, even Jin Wuji didn't have it so easy. Could it be that Ling Han is even stronger than Jin Wuji? Someone exclaimed. Impossible, the power of each of his attacks was weaker than Jin Wuji's. How could he be stronger than Jin Wuji? Someone immediately retorted. But why is it that Jin Wuji had such a hard time winning, but Ling Han easily gained the upper hand? No one knew that the Staff of Slaughter could suppress divine sense, so they naturally could not understand why Ling Han could easily suppress Bailey Tung Yun, even though his attack power was clearly weaker than Jin Wuji's. They could not understand it no matter how they thought about it. Meanwhile, Bailey Tung Yun began to think, the people before me have obviously done Ling Han a favor. If I don't do so, he will probably bear a grudge against me. Moreover, it's impossible for me to get first place. Since that's the case, what difference does 4th and 5th have? Thinking of this, he withdrew his staff and retreated, saying, Brother Ling is very strong. I admit defeat. Fuck, why did he admit defeat again? Everyone was excited. Why was Bailey Tung Yun acting like the people before him, giving up just like that? Just what was the background of this Ling Han? Why was everyone doing favors for him? Ling Han ascended to the 4th arena, and there were only 3 opponents left. Although he had expended some energy fighting Bailey Tung Yun, it was enough for him to fight again. Ling Han leaped up and arrived at the 3rd arena. Congratulations, Brother Ling, for overcoming all obstacles along the way. Li Dongyu said to Ling Han. Then, his expression turned serious as he said, however, I will fight with all my strength to show my respect to Brother Ling, please. Ling Han unsheathed his sword and made a gesture to return the gesture. Li Dongyu let out a long roar and launched the little Tianyuan hand, attacking Ling Han. Although he did not have a weapon in his hand, after cultivating this martial skill, as long as he circulated his spiritual energy, his hands would become as hard as iron. Even sharp weapons would not be able to injure him. At the very least, the ordinary iron sword in Ling Han's hand would not be able to injure him. Ding! 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 The blade of the sword collided with the hand of flesh and blood. Sounds rang out continuously, and there were even streaks of sparks that flickered. Li Dongyu was in the 9th layer of poly, and his strength surpassed that of Bailey Tung Yun and Ling Han. Thus, after exchanging a few blows, Ling Han instantly felt the web between his thumb and forefinger go numb. However, he had already cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scrolls body of Dead Tree, and this little bit of damage would not be able to affect him at all. Ling Han shook his head. In this kind of head-on clash, either he had the advantage in strength or they were evenly matched. Even if his body was like Dead Tree and could not be injured by the recoil, it would still be meaningless. He used the shocking electricity sword technique, and 2 flashes of sword chi flew continuously. In an instant he had turned the tables. However, Li Dongyu's fame was definitely not just for show. He had formed 3 flashes of chi, and each of his palms was extremely powerful. Previously, he had lost to Qi Yongyi and Jin Wuji because those 2 were stronger. His little Tianyuan hand was also a yellow-grade high-level martial arts technique. Thus, Ling Han did not have the advantage in terms of the grade of his martial arts technique, and in terms of strength he was actually 1 tier behind. Under Li Dongyu's full power attacks, Ling Han was once again gradually falling into a disadvantage. What's going on? Logically speaking, Bailey Tengyun should be stronger than Li Dongyu. Ling Han could defeat Bailey Tengyun so easily, but now he is having such a hard time. Could it be that Bailey Tengyun did not use his full power just now? That must be the case. Otherwise, how could it be like this? I'm really curious. What is this Ling Han's background, and why did those people earlier deliberately give in to him? Everyone was confused and curious. Meanwhile, Ling Dongxing's brows were tightly furrowed. His son had defeated Bailey Tengyun, and should have advanced like a hot knife through butter, and obtained the third place. But why was it that he had encountered the weaker Li Dongyu, and was instead at a disadvantage? A smile appeared on Ling Han's lips. Come on, he needed to increase his battle prowess a little. With a shake of his sword, 4 flashes of sword chi appeared simultaneously. Pooh! This time everyone choked, and all of them were dumbfounded. 4 flashes of sword chi, it was actually 4 flashes of sword chi. One had to know that 4 flashes of sword chi was considered a small success, and one could be called a king. It represented that one could be invincible in a certain realm. A 17-year-old king. On the other hand, Ling Dongxing was both surprised and delighted. He turned to Lu Yutong and said, "Did you already know that Honor had formed 4 flashes of sword chi?" Yes. Lu Yutong nodded. In reality, Ling Han had already formed 4 flashes of sword chi when he was still in the body refinement realm. It was just that this fellow had always been unwilling to reveal his full strength. Thus, every time he revealed a bit more of his strength, he would always be able to surprise people. Good. Ling Dongxing heavily slapped his thigh, his face full of excitement. This stinking brat, he even kept his own father in the dark. When I go back, I will teach him a good lesson. Lu Yutong pursed her lips and smiled faintly. She knew that Ling Dongxing's heart was only filled with happiness now, so how could he bear to blame Ling Han? No wonder the people before him all admitted defeat. So this guy has actually formed 4 flashes of sword chi. He can be called a king among his peers. Who would have thought that such a genius would appear in Ardiyuan City? That's right. Among the 36 cities of Rain Country, the level of martial art of Ardiyuan City has always been below average. Now, a genius who has formed 4 flashes of sword chi has actually appeared. This is really a great honor. When the 4 flashes of sword chi appeared, it instantly shocked everyone present. Even the battle between the 4th prince and Jin Wuji was overshadowed. More and more people turned their gazes over, fighting to see the power of the 4 flashes of sword chi. Li Dongyu's face was filled with bitterness. He had trained hard for 3 years, and had originally thought that he would be able to obtain the first place in this Diyuan tournament. He had never thought that he would first receive a sharp warning from the 4th prince, which made him realize that he had already fallen behind his peers. Now, a freak who had formed 4 flashes of sword chi had appeared in the younger generation, causing his confidence to suffer a heavy blow. However, he immediately pulled himself together. As long as he entered Huyang University, his power would definitely improve by leaps and bounds, and he would be able to catch up to the 4th prince and Jin Wuji. This person has a very deep relationship with the 3 great black great alchemists, and he has also formed 4 flashes of sword chi. Why don't I just admit defeat and give him some face? Li Dongyu thought. He has already gone easy on me, so if I don't do him a favor, I'm afraid it won't be good. Thinking up to this point, he leapt backwards, clasped his hands in obeisance, and said, "Brother Ling is really a genius, to be able to form 4 flashes of sword chi at the mere age of 17. I am in complete admiration. There is no need to continue, I admit defeat." Fuck. Everyone was gloomy. This was the first time they had seen a genius who had formed 4 flashes of sword chi. You actually didn't even fight a little longer to let them have their fill, admitting defeat so quickly. Reading on one's phone was much more refreshing. Chapter 75. Qi Yongyi and the others all looked furious. Kneeling down and licking someone's shoe, what kind of humiliation was that? If this Wei He Lu was in Gushing Spring Tier or a black grade alchemist, then perhaps he would still have the right to do so. But he was only a yellow grade low-level alchemist, a small martial artist in the first layer of element gathering tier, So where did he get such an arrogant tone? Those born in the imperial city really had a sense of superiority that soared to the skies. You've gone too far. Jin Wuji immediately shouted, Wei Lu, you're only a yellow-grade low-level alchemist now. Don't you think you're being a bit too arrogant? You dare oppose me? Wei Lu smiled coldly, appearing extremely confident. He was indeed only a yellow-grade low-level alchemist now, but his future was limitless. Otherwise, why would Feng Luo deliberately befriend him? Of course, the reason he and Feng Luo called each other brother was also because of his relationship with Feng Yan. Otherwise, how could a mere martial artist in element-gathering tier enter his sights? He had astonishing potential in the field of alchemy, while Feng Yan had the potential to become a king in the field of martial arts. After all, this world was a world where the strong were revered. No matter how awesome an alchemist was, he would still need the help of a powerful martial artist. Jin Wuji suddenly felt an urge to beat someone up. Wei Lu was only in the first layer of element-gathering tier, and his appearance seemed to have been improved by alchemical pills. Jin Wuji would be able to suppress him with a single hand, and a yellow-grade low-level alchemist was even less worth mentioning. He would never ask for help from a powerful martial artist. The problem was Wei Lu could possibly be taken as a disciple by Wu Songlin. That was a black-grade high-level alchemist. In the past, Ling Han only had 2 black-grade low-level alchemists standing behind him, and that was already enough to make everyone in Yuan City fall in love with him. What more when it was Wu Songlin? Jin Wuji's expression darkened, but he did not speak again. What are you being so arrogant for? Bailey Tingyun was young and impetuous, and when he thought that he was a citizen of Yuan City, even if this Wei Lu really became a black-grade alchemist in the future, it would have nothing to do with him, so naturally he would not feel any fear or respect towards Wei Lu. Wei Lu could not help but look displeased and said, Are you provoking me? So what if I am? Do you dare to battle with me? Bailey Tingyun said proudly, Young Master Wei. It was at this moment that another 3 people walked over. The aura exuding from their bodies was extremely powerful, and they had all reached the 9th layer of element-gathering tier. So it's you guys. Wei Lu walked over, and a faint smile appeared on his face, appearing to be a bit perfunctory. Young Master Wei, we've encountered some trouble, one of them said with a smile. He was dressed in a green battle robe, and had a tall and slender figure. Wei Lu revealed a disdainful smile, pointed at Bailey Tingyun, and said, This guy says he wants to challenge me. Ha ha ha. Where did this stupid brat come from? He actually dares to challenge young Master Wei. The green-robed man laughed loudly, and crooked his finger at Bailey Tingyun, and said, Come, come, come. I'll be your opponent. How could Bailey Tingyun endure such provocation? He was just about to agree when he was pulled back by Qi Yongyi. Qi Yongyi said, When Hai Xing, when did you become so useless? An elite ranked in the top 100 actually wants to bully a junior brother, who has just entered the academy? So it's the Eternal Night King. The green-robed man acted as if he had just noticed Qi Yongyi. He raised his head in greeting and said, No wonder he dares to oppose young Master Wei. The 4th prince of Yuan City is indeed domineering. On the surface, his words seemed to be praising Qi Yongyi, but in reality, he was drawing hatred to himself. Wei Li's expression immediately darkened, and he said, So he is a relative of the imperial family. No wonder he is so arrogant. He had displayed outstanding talent in alchemy since he was young, and there was no one in his age group who did not try to curry favor with him, wanting to establish a good relationship with him, a future great alchemist. When Hai Xing's words naturally caused him to feel a strong dissatisfaction towards Qi Yongyi. Ling Han, are you going to kneel or not? Feng Luo interrupted. The person he hated the most was naturally Ling Han, and Qi Yongyi was the 4th prince of Yuan City, and was very likely to inherit the throne in the future. Feng Luo naturally did not want to offend him. So it is senior brother Feng Yan's younger brother. When Hai Xing and the others found out about Feng Luo's identity, they immediately smiled. Although they did not respect Feng Luo, Feng Yan was really too strong. It was said that he had the ability to become a core disciple. One of them immediately turned to Ling Han and said, Brat, I Shen Yuxian will say something today. If you are unable to satisfy junior brother Feng Luo today, then you can only return to the academy horizontally. I Mi Zhongguang feel the same, a 3rd person said. Feng Luo was extremely proud of himself, and laughed loudly as he said, Ling Han, you still dare to act arrogantly in front of me? Who do you think you are, actually daring to put on airs in front of me and humiliate me time and time again? Who do you think I am? Even a finger of mine is worth 10,000 times more than you. Wei Lu and the others all smirked coldly. A mere new student from another city would naturally not be taken seriously by them. The only people they would be wary of were the direct descendants of the 8 great clans of the imperial city. At the entrance, the 4 guards of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion only watched coldly from the sidelines. As long as they did not cause trouble in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, even if the sky were to collapse, they would not care. Hurry up and kneel. Feng Luo shouted loudly. Kneel your sister. Ling Han moved and charged towards Feng Luo. How dare you? When Hai Sheng, Mi Zhongguang and Shen Yuxian all moved at the same time. They were all in the 9th layer of element gathering tier, and their battle prowess was extremely strong. None of them was weaker than Qi Yongyi. The 3 of them moved together, and their momentum was astonishing. Get lost. Ling Han used the exiting cloud steps, and actually dashed out of the encirclement of the 3 people. When Hai Xing and the others were all shocked. When they saw that Ling Han was only in the 5th layer of element gathering tier, they did not take him seriously at all. Who would have thought that Ling Han's speed would be so fast, and his footsteps would be so strange? Thus, they did not use their full strength, and Ling Han easily broke through their encirclement. Ling Han had already appeared in front of Feng Luo, and stretched out a hand to grab him. You dare! Wei Lu stepped in front of Feng Luo. He was confident that he was a yellow-grade low-level alchemist, and also the disciple of the future headmaster of the alchemy department, so Ling Han would not dare to touch a single hair on his head. However, he had not even finished his thought when he was sent flying by a single slap from Ling Han. Fuck, this guy really dared to hit him. With a paw, Ling Han once again sent Feng Luo tumbling onto the ground. Without waiting for the latter to stand up, Ling Han had already stepped on Feng Luo's face. Bastard, you actually dare to step on me. You must be tired of living. My brother will definitely kill you. He definitely will. As Feng Luo screamed, he continued to threaten Ling Han. Only a profligate young master like him would dare to make such a threat in public. What kind of place was the imperial city? Murder here was a serious crime. On the other side, Wei Li's face was also filled with fury. He had actually been sent flying with a single slap. This was too insolent, too despicable. He would definitely not spare this extremely audacious guy. Junior brother Wei. It was at this moment that a young man and woman happened to walk over. When the woman saw Wei Li's appearance, she could not help but look surprised. Senior sister Li. Wei Lu hurriedly crawled to his feet, his hands hanging by his sides, appearing extremely respectful. This woman was Li Si-chan. In front of others, Wei Lu could put on a haughty attitude, but in front of Li Si-chan, he had to obediently put away his arrogance, because the latter's talent in alchemy far surpassed his own. Wu Songlin only admired his talent, but Li Si-chan was Wu Songlin's most beloved disciple. Even if he had really become Wu Songlin's disciple, he would still have to be very respectful in front of Li Si-chan. Chapter 76. Jin Wuji was at the peak of the 9th layer of Pali, and a yellow-grade high-level martial technique was the strongest technique one could learn in this realm. Furthermore, he had cultivated 2 streams of qi, so he was definitely close to the king tier in the Pali realm. Unfortunately, his opponent was Ling Han. For streaks of sword qi, a king of the same level. Jin Wuji felt as if he was facing Qi Yongyi. The only difference was that Qi Yongyi was stronger. In other aspects, Ling Han was not inferior to Qi Yongyi at all. In fact, he was even better at adapting to the situation. Is he really a 17-year-old boy? Talent is scary. It was only now that Jin Wuji had completely given up on his desire for revenge. He even decided that after the Dayuan martial arts tournament, he would bring his younger brother to apologize to Ling Han and completely resolve this grudge. Because Ling Han's achievements in the future would be incomparably shocking, surpassing him was a sure thing. Since it was impossible to eliminate such an opponent, then it was better to make friends with him and not become enemies. Battle, battle, battle. This time, aside from the lone wolf's blood and the indestructible heaven scroll, Ling Han had pretty much used all of his abilities, allowing him to fight to his heart's content. However, the 5-element origin nuclei were rapidly depleting his origin power, causing him to be unable to hold on for too long. It would be great if he could obtain the Dark Moon Grass. It could increase the size of his Dantian space by several times. After exchanging over 100 moves, the two of them were still evenly matched. Jin Wuji could not help but think, there are 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind this guy. In any case, just like the others before him, he had chosen to go easy on Ling Han and sell him a favor. Afterwards, he would bring his younger brother to Ling Han's residence to apologize, and that should be enough to resolve this grudge. Brother Ling's skills are superb, I admit defeat. He quickly retreated and cupped his hands in surrender. Ling Han was already running out of stamina. He was just about to circulate the lone wolf blood to instantly defeat his opponent. He did not expect Jin Wuji to admit defeat first. Sensing the other party's friendly signal, he nodded and said, "Thank you for letting me win." Moreover, there was no irreconcilable enmity between him and Jin Wuji in the first place. Sure enough, he admitted defeat again. Could it be that one of the martial techniques that Ling Han has learned especially used to make people admit defeat? Ha 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 ha. If you have the same talent as Ling Han and can cultivate out 4 streams of sword energy, I can admit defeat to you as well. Bah, how can it be so easy to cultivate 4 strands of sword chi? Everyone was surprised that Ling Han had taken another step forward, but they also felt that it was only natural, because this scene had happened so many times that they were almost numb to it. Fortunately, Ling Han only had one opponent left. Even if Qi Yongyi admitted defeat, he would only be surprised for a moment. Good. Ling Dongxing clenched his fists tightly. He was so excited that his scalp went numb. His son had achieved such a result. What more could he ask for? Thinking back to 2 months ago when his son said that he would get first place, he couldn't believe it. But now? The championship is only a stone's throw away, even though he knew that Qi Yongyi was powerful and that his son of Heaven's fist was comparable to 4 flashes of sword chi, and that his realm was far above Ling Han's. He could not help but feel ambitious. What if his son really can? First, now that he had come this far, he had to aim for first place. If he did not challenge it, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Challenges were still going on in the other arenas, but not many people were paying attention to them. Everyone was waiting for Ling Han to recover his strength and proceed with his final battle. Would Ling Han continue to create miracles and become the biggest dark horse in this year's De Yuan tournament? Would it be the 4th prince who had the last laugh and rid himself of the title of 2nd place? Ling Han had plenty of time to rest, because there was no rule that stated that he had to challenge after resting for half an hour. He naturally wanted to recover to his peak condition before challenging Qi Yongyi. Although Ling Han did not issue a challenge even after a long time, no one urged him to. That was because they knew that only when Ling Han had recovered to his peak condition would he and the 4th prince be able to present the most spectacular battle. After another hour, Ling Han finally stood up. It's coming, everyone said in their hearts, and their nerves were immediately filled with excitement. 4th prince, let's fight. Ling Han leapt onto the first arena and issued a challenge to Qi Yongyi. Brother Ling, please. Qi Yongyi smiled, but in his heart he had the urge to curse. Because those people before him had all gone easy on Ling Han because of the 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind him, so should he go easy or not? If he went easy, he had gone for the first place in this De Yuan tournament. Moreover, the Dark Moon Grass could allow him to immediately break through to Gushing Spring tier, which could save him at least 2 to 3 years of hard cultivation. But if he didn't go easy, he had already gone easy, but if he didn't, wouldn't that be not giving face to Ling Han? If it had been anyone else, that would have been fine, but Qi Yongyi had great ambitions. He wanted to become a famous leader, and a famous leader would naturally have to be courteous and humble, and recruit talents from all over. Especially when it came to displeasing a genius like Ling Han, it was naturally a very bad thing. Was it difficult for Qi Yongyi? In the end, Qi Yongyi decided to go all out. At most, he would give one to Ling Han after he had concocted the Dark Moon Grass into alchemical pills. Please. Ling Han waved his sword, and 4 flashes of sword chi shot out. Qi Yongyi gave a loud shout, and the Son of Heaven fist technique was displayed. His movements were wide, and it was as if his punch could even shatter a mountain in front of him. What was more frightening was that there were actually 3 flashes of qi entwined around his fist. Although the power of the nation and qi could not be calculated simply by superimposing one another, it was still stronger than 4 flashes of sword qi. Everyone gasped in shock. So Qi Yongyi had not used his full strength just now, and this was the true power of the 4th prince. So powerful, how could he win like this? Even those who had half a step into gushing spring tier, who had not yet formed qi, would probably be no match for him. Pung pung pung. Under the heavy punches, Ling Han retreated continuously, but even with such an impact, his body was completely unscathed. Body of dead wood. Ling Han was a little dazed. If he did not bleed, then why did he faint after activating Lone Wolf's blood? So having a strong defense was not entirely a good thing, as it actually conflicted with Lone Wolf's blood. He gave a loud shout and bit down hard on his tongue. An astringent taste spread in his mouth. He finally bled. Hong, the 4-5 element origin nuclei in his body immediately circulated at an even higher speed, causing his power to suddenly increase by another level. 9th layer of poly. The higher the tier, the smaller the increase in power from Lone Wolf's blood, but it was enough. Ling Han brandished his metal sword and displayed the shocking electricity sword technique to its fullest. Ding 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 ding, pung 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 pung. The two of them exchanged blows fiercely, displaying their power to their heart's content. Heavens, poly tier can actually be so strong. I'm also at the 9th layer of poly tier, but if it was me, I'd probably be defeated in 3 moves. Truly, it's infuriating to compare oneself to others, and the new generation replaces the old. We're old, and this era belongs to the people of this era. Quite a few of the clan heads of the town side. They were in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s, and they were all stuck at the threshold of the 9th layer of poly tier. Because they had been unable to break through for a long time, they had trained their origin power to the absolute limit. But facing these 2 up-and-coming youngsters, they could only sigh at their inferiority. Chapter 77. Qi Yongyi was stunned. He had thought that he could look down on all the geniuses of Deyuan City, and even if he did not use his full strength, he would still be able to obtain first place. And things had developed as he had expected, until he encountered the dark horse Ling Han. Too strong. This time he had really used his full strength, but was still unable to gain the slightest advantage. How could he not be shocked? Ling Han was only in the 4th layer of poly, and was already so powerful. When he reached the 7th layer and stepped into the late stage of poly, how strong would he be? He was no longer a genius but a monster. Feng Yan had not been that strong back then, right? Qi Yongyi could not help but think. In this generation of youngsters in Deyuan City, Qi Yongyi was not the most talented but rather Feng Yan. 3 years ago, Feng Yan was in the 9th layer of poly, and obtained first place with an absolute advantage. And in the Dayuan tournament 2 years ago, Feng Yan, with the ability of the 4th layer of poly, defeated quite a few opponents in the 9th layer of poly, and obtained the title of champion. Even after entering Huyang University, where geniuses gathered, Feng Yan's brilliance did not diminish in the slightest. He broke through to gushing spring tier the year before last, and became one of the top 10 elites of the academy. Such an achievement was something that Qi Yongyi could only look up to. Now Qi Yongyi finally found a monster that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Feng Yan, or perhaps even surpass him. Because when Feng Yan was still in the 4th layer of poly, his opponents in the 9th layer of poly were far from being as strong as Qi Yongyi. As Qi Yongyi battled fiercely, he thought to himself, since Ling Han is so monstrous, why don't we just help him achieve his fame and let him enter Huyang Academy with a halo that is not inferior to Feng Yan's? Feng Yan would definitely feel the pressure then, right? Fine, then he would also give Ling Han face. Of course, if Ling Han was not strong enough, Qi Yongyi would definitely not give him face. But now that Ling Han had shown that he had the ability to stand against him, he was happy to do him a favor at little cost. After all, it was unknown what heights this monster would reach in the future, and with the support of an alchemist, it would not be a dream for him to surpass Feng Yan. This was someone worthy of his investment. He was betting on it. Haha, Brother Ling really is amazing. I admit defeat for this battle, Qi Yongyi said. Ling Han smiled and said, this battle can only be considered a draw. His advantage was the body of deadwood, which had amazing defense and recovery abilities. However, his weakness was that the 5 elemental energies consumed too much energy. Thus, he indeed had no confidence in defeating Qi Yongyi. A draw could be said to be very fair. Qi Yongyi shook his head and said, "You're only at the 4th layer of poly, yet you're able to fight me to a standstill. If I still insist on saying it's a draw, then my skin would be too thick." After saying that, he took the initiative to jump onto the second arena. Ling Han reaches the summit. Whoosh! The audience immediately cried out in surprise. Although this result was not too surprising, many people still felt incredulous when they heard the 4th prince admit defeat. 6 years ago, the number 1 genius of Dayuan City, with a cultivation level of the 4th layer of Poly, overcame all obstacles and bravely seized the first place in the Dayuan tournament. 6 years later, another dark horse had appeared. Was the martial art of Dayuan City flourishing? Ling Han did not stand on ceremony. He indeed needed the reward of being the champion. Thus he only cupped his hands towards Qi Yongyi. He would remember this favor, and in the future he would repay it tenfold. At this time there was only about half an hour before sunset. There was only one arena left in which a fierce battle was still going on. If the champion of the arena won, then the Dayuan tournament would come to an end. If not, then they would have to wait for a while. However, there were no more surprises. Half an hour later, the ranking of the top 10 was announced. First place, Ling Han. "He's really number 1, he's really number 1. Ling Dongxing mumbled. His face was filled with excitement, but also with disbelief. His son, who had once been publicly acknowledged as trash, had actually become the champion of the Dayuan tournament one day. He finally let out a hearty laugh filled with joy. The top 10 left the arena. Next, the Duke's mansion would host a banquet to celebrate the success of the top 50 geniuses. "Congratulations, Brother Ling. Congratulations." Qi Yongyi and the others gathered around and congratulated Ling Han. "Many thanks, many thanks." Ling Han clasped his hands in greeting. "Haha, we must drink till we're drunk later." "Naturally. Let's go, let's go." Only the top 50 geniuses could attend the banquet. Their family members were not allowed to accompany them. Thus, whether it was Ling Dongxing or Lu Yutong, neither of them could accompany Ling Han. Very soon, Ling Han and the others arrived at the royal house of the Dayuan king. This was a huge mansion, at least 10 times the size of the 4th prince's mansion. The interior of the royal house was decorated with all sorts of extravagant decorations, causing some of the youths who had come from a small town to stare with their mouths half open, as if they were country bumpkins who had entered the imperial palace. This banquet was hosted by the Dayuan king himself. Later, the top 10 geniuses would be rewarded. However, the Dayuan king did not stay for long. He was a powerful warrior of the spiritual ocean tier, so there was no need for him to put on any airs. He only had to sit there and he would naturally exude a terrifying aura, causing everyone to feel oppressed. After he left, the atmosphere became lively. They were all young people after all, so they quickly exchanged pleasantries. Not long after, everyone would be heading to Huyang University, so they naturally hoped to make more friends so that they could take care of each other in the future. However, Ling Han could not sit still. He was waiting for that dark moon grass. This was a treasure that even powerful warriors of the heaven tier would covet. As long as he did not put it into his own pocket, he would not be able to rest easy. Thinking about it, it was really laughable. With his temperament, he would actually be so impatient. After waiting for 2 hours, the banquet finally ended. The rewards for the top 10 geniuses were given out one by one, all of which were placed in a small box. Ling Han opened one, and inside was a stalk of medicinal herb that was about a foot tall. Every leaf was shaped like a crescent moon, and its color was the same as the dark moon. As expected, it was the dark moon grass. Ling Han heaved a sigh of relief. He really wanted to leave immediately, but Qi Yongyi and the others all came over to chat with him, so he could not leave at all. Only when it was midnight did everyone disperse, and Ling Han finally returned to Tianyi. He immediately began to concoct the alchemical pill. Although the spatial pill would covet even powerful warriors of the heaven tier, those of the poly tier could similarly use it. Thus, strictly speaking, this was only a middle-level yellow-grade alchemical pill, so Ling Han could naturally concoct it. He had long since prepared the other ingredients, and was only missing the main ingredient, the dark moon grass. Since everything was ready, he immediately began to concoct the alchemical pill. Now that he was of the poly tier, concocting a middle-level yellow-grade alchemical pill was naturally a piece of cake for him. After only half an hour, he had successfully concocted the spatial pill. Unfortunately, there was only one. He swallowed the spatial pill without hesitation, and immediately sat down, quietly waiting for the medicinal effects to take effect. Very quickly a world-shaking change occurred within his body. His dantian seemed to have become an ocean, and with each impact, the space within his dantian would expand a little. Chapter 78. One time, 2 times, 3 times, Ling Han's dantian space continued to expand at an astonishing speed. He felt as if his body was about to explode, but in reality the dantian was a small world, and even if it expanded to become bigger than this planet, it would not cause any change to his body. Ling Han coordinated with the medicinal effects and pushed the dantian to expand. At this time, being able to expand even a tiny bit more was a gain. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. Ling Han was filled with surprise, because there was still a large amount of medicinal effects that had not been used up. How much could this expand his dantian? But thinking about it, it was normal. This was an alchemical pill that could move the heart of a powerful warrior of heaven tier, and now it was taken by him, a mere warrior of poly tier. How awesome was the effect? Unfortunately, people nowadays did not recognize such a good thing as the dark moon grass, and were so extravagant as to use it to break through to gushing spring tier. Unfortunately, the spatial pill could only be taken once in a lifetime. The second one would be useless, or else he believed that he could obtain even more dark moon grass. But on the other hand, for most people, the spatial pill did not have much meaning, because they would rarely fight to the point where their origin power was completely exhausted. The expansion of the dantian space only increased a martial artist's endurance. The amount of power that could be released with each strike was still the same. But for a small number of geniuses, this was very important because they would often fight to the point where they were at the end of their rope. Then, the larger the dantian space, the longer they could last, and in many cases it could definitely save their lives. Ling Han was naturally even happier. He had the 5 elements origin nuclei, and the previous dantian space was really too small, completely insufficient. 80 times, 90 times, 100 times, and finally, the medicinal effects dissipated completely, and Ling Han opened his eyes. 100 times expansion. However, if this spatial pill was taken by a powerful warrior of heaven tier, it would only expand the dantian space by 10%, but it would be 100 times bigger than his 100 times. The two were not on the same level at all. It wasn't that the spatial core wasn't powerful enough, it was just that his cultivation level was too low. However, as his cultivation level increased in the future, the expansion of his dantian space would also be much greater than that of others. It was just that this increase would become smaller and smaller, until the heaven tier's expansion would be reduced to 10%. Thus, it was not a loss for him to consume the spatial pill so early. On the contrary, the earlier he consumed it, the earlier he could use it. This benefit would allow him to advance from the poly tier all the way to the heaven tier, and even the shattering void tier in the future. He didn't stand up immediately. Instead, he activated the 5 elements Chaos Lotus and continuously absorbed spiritual energy, transforming it into origin energy in his dantian and accumulating it. Although his dantian space was very big now, the 5 elements Chaos Lotus was too awesome. Coupled with the 5 elements heaven grade skill, the speed at which he absorbed and refined spiritual energy was ridiculously fast. In just one night he had completely filled up the huge dantian space. This also meant that if he fought until his strength was exhausted, he would need a night to recover to his peak condition without taking any pills. Although he hadn't slept for an entire night, Ling Han was still full of energy. After reaching the poly tier, cultivation could already replace sleep to a certain extent. Moreover, it was only one night without sleep, so it was a piece of cake. Hunter, when do you plan to return to Grey Cloud Town? Ling Dongxing asked him when they came to the outer room to have a meal. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, "A lot of people want to treat me to a meal, so it's not good to refuse. Maybe in 3 or 4 days." "Alright, then stay here for a few more days. I'll go home first and prepare a celebration for you," Ling Dongxing said excitedly. He couldn't wait to let the whole town know that Ling Han had won the first place in the Dayuan tournament. "All right, father, be careful on your journey," Ling Han said with a smile. Ling Dongxing nodded. He wasn't the slightest bit worried about Ling Han, because his son's strength was already above his own. Even if he stayed, he wouldn't be able to protect Ling Han. Moreover, he was the head of the family after all. After being away for so long, he had to hurry back and take charge of the situation. After breakfast, Ling Dongxing returned to Grey Cloud Town first, while Ling Han was dragged out by Qi Yongyi and the others to eat and play here and there. This was because these people had gone easy on Ling Han in the previous tournament. This was a favor, and naturally Ling Han couldn't burn the bridge after crossing it. The next day, Qi Yongyi invited Ling Han to the arena to play. What was so fun about the arena? Ling Han didn't understand, but he couldn't resist Qi Yongyi's enthusiasm, and was dragged there by him. It was also the place where the Dayuan tournament had been held 2 days ago. At this time, all the arenas had been torn down, and there was only one battle taking place in the huge arena. 5 gladiators were currently being attacked by 13 demonic beasts. The battle was intense, and the scene was bloody. The spectators in the arenas were constantly roaring in excitement. They are all prisoners on death row. Although it is dangerous to fight here, if they can win 10 battles in a row, they will be able to regain their freedom, Qi Yongyi explained. Ling Han nodded. Most empires had such a system. After prisoners were sentenced to death, they could choose to enter the arena to fight to the death, winning a chance of survival for themselves. Of course, most people would die inside, and those who could truly regain their freedom could be counted on one's fingers. Good! The spectators suddenly shouted. Because one of the prisoners had made a mistake. He had been surrounded and attacked by 3 demonic beasts, and 2 of his arms had been bitten off. He screamed in pain, but these screams didn't last long. Very quickly, his throat was bitten off, and he was eaten by the hungry demonic beasts. The spectators here had come for this death and this blood. Seeing such a scene, some of the crazed women even tore off their own clothes, shaking and screaming. The remaining 4 did not panic at all. It was obvious that they had experienced such scenes many times. They relied on each other, and only needed to face the enemies in front of them. "You can bet here. Brother Ling, are you interested?" Qi Yongyi turned his head to ask him. Ling Han shook his head. He had never been fond of such things where one's life was used for amusement. So Brother Ling doesn't like to watch this kind of battle. To be honest, I don't like it either. However, there's a battle that's going to be very exciting, Qi Yongyi said mysteriously. An elite warrior of gushing spring tier. He's a rapist who has harmed who knows how many women, but he's really powerful. He won't die no matter what. Today, he'll try to win 1,000 battles, and if he can win again, then we'll have no choice but to release him. Winning 10 battles in a row in body refining tier would allow one to gain their freedom, poly tier would allow 100 battles, and gushing spring tier would allow 1,000 battles. A killing intent involuntarily rose in Ling Han's eyes. Among the people he hated the most, perverted thieves could definitely be ranked in the top 3. This kind of scum should be directly killed, and there was no need to give them the slightest chance. Today many people have come to watch this perverted criminal die, Qi Yongyi said. For this, our royal house of the Dayuan king has even sent out an elite warrior. He definitely won't let him escape this calamity. While they were speaking, the battle in the arena was nearing its end. More than 10 demonic beasts attacked from all sides, and in a situation where 7 beasts had died, the 4 condemned prisoners were bitten to death, causing the audience on the arena to cheer continuously. Everyone, before the grand finale, please enjoy a little show. A host entered the arena. With a wave of his hand, the iron bars on both sides of the arena rose at the same time, and a cage was pushed out from each side. In one of the cages was an adult wolf with an extremely strong body, while in the other cage was a little girl of at most 5 or 6 years of age. Ling Han instantly stood up, his fury rising. Chapter 79. Mo Gao was similarly astonished. In his opinion, a student who would be given to him must have entered through the back door. If there was really no future for him to develop, then he would be wasting his time following him. Previously, he had spoken so much, but rather than saying that he was teaching Ling Han, it was more accurate to say that he had been bored for too long, and wanted to pour out his heart's content. As for whether Ling Han could understand or not, he did not consider it at all. He had never thought that Ling Han would really understand, and after digesting the information, he would very quickly form a flash of sword chi. If it was only one flash of sword chi, he could still accept it. The problem was, Ling Han originally had 5 flashes of sword chi. 5 flashes of sword chi, what kind of concept was that? 3 flashes of sword chi could be considered a ruler, and 5 flashes would be considered a small accomplishment. This was definitely a genius, and it was possible that he had surpassed any of his peers in Rain Country. But why would such a genius be given to him to teach? Mo Gao really could not understand, but when he thought about it, he was very happy. That was because Ling Han was now his student, and the higher his student's achievements were in the future, the more glory he would feel. Teacher, there are some parts that I don't really understand. Ling Han put away his sword and asked Mo Gao for guidance. In terms of comprehension of martial arts, he could be Mo Gao's grandmaster. But if it was only in terms of comprehension of sword arts, Mo Gao was actually above him. Firstly, Mo Gao had already immersed himself in the art of the sword for over 10 years, and secondly, he was indeed a genius in the art of the sword. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask, Mo Gao immediately said. It had already been over 10 years, and when had he ever been asked for guidance by a student? Ling Han asked some of his questions, and Mo Gao immediately elaborated according to his own understanding. In this process, Ling Han had also been greatly enlightened. One had to know that although Ling Han had not spent much time on the art of the sword, the knowledge and experience of a heaven-tier elite was there for all to see, and the questions he asked all went straight to the heart of the matter. Mo Gao kept saying "yeah" and "oh," and his eyes became brighter and brighter. He scratched his ears and cheeks, looking like he was unable to contain his joy. Before he knew it, it was already noon. He gave a long sigh and said, "Your talent in the art of the sword is even higher than mine, and I don't have the face to be your teacher. How about this, we can become friends as equals, and discuss things with each other." Ling Han shook his head and said, "In the art of the sword, Teacher Mo is indeed qualified to be my teacher. Even if I surpass Teacher Mo in the art of the sword in the future, I will definitely not forget the kindness that Teacher Mo has shown me today." Mo Gao sighed ruefully. He had actually encountered such a genius student. Unfortunately, he was not qualified enough to take Ling Han as his disciple. The relationship between teacher and student had only been formed because of the academy. "Hungry?" Hunyao said pitifully as she tugged on Ling Han's clothes. All right, let's go eat." Ling Han excused himself from Mo Gao and left the academy. He randomly found a restaurant, ordered a sumptuous meal, and began to gorge himself with Hunyao. Eating with this little girl, one had to be fast enough. Otherwise, a dish would definitely be gone in 2 or 3 bites. A single meal actually cost more than 1,000 silver coins, causing Ling Han to exclaim that he had no money to spend. This was because the consumption of food in the imperial city was high enough, and the little girl was too big of a glutton. He had to concoct alchemical pills to earn money. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to feed Hunyao, not to mention buying ingredients for her cultivation. It couldn't be helped. He had just arrived in the imperial city yesterday, and there were 1,000 things waiting to be done. Everything had to be started from the beginning. Ling Han held Hunyao's small hand, and on the way, he asked a few people for directions, and finally found the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. As expected of the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion of the imperial city, merely a flight of over 1,000 steps was enough to make one gasp in amazement. It was 100 meters wide, and slanted upwards all the way. At a height of 300 meters, there stood a great hall, which was incomparably magnificent. Ling Han and Hunyao followed the flight of stairs and entered the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. The moment they entered, they saw a female attendant who acted as a sales guide approach them. Her appearance was very sweet, and she said, "Customer, hello? My name is Xiaoying. What alchemical pills do you need?" "I don't need alchemical pills, I only need some ingredients," Ling Han said with a smile. "What kind of ingredients do you need, customer?" Xiaoying asked again. Ling Han listed out the ingredients he needed. Xiaoying had obviously been trained for a long time. On one hand, she memorized the names and quantity of the ingredients, And on the other hand, she also listed out the price of each ingredient. Customer, the total is 320,000 silver coins, Xiaoying said with a smile. The Heaven's Medicine Pavilion mainly relied on successfully concocting alchemical pills to earn money. As for ingredients, unless they were especially valuable, such as second star grass, the price would only be slightly higher than the cost. Thus, although this was a large business transaction, the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion did not earn much, and the commission that she could get would naturally not be much. 320,000 Ling Han sighed. He only had a little over 100,000 on him, and that was far from enough. But he also wanted to concoct the second star pill as soon as possible, so he said, "Please go and inform Fu Yuansheng that Ling Han is looking for him." Fu Yuansheng. Lord. 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 Xiaoying was startled for a moment, and then came to a sudden realization. She was so shocked that she could not even speak coherently. How high and mighty was the Lord Pavilion Master? Aside from the Rain Emperor, there was no one else in the whole of Rain Country who had a higher status than the Lord Pavilion Master. Even the clan heads of the 8 great clans could only sit on equal footing with the Lord Pavilion Master. A young man had opened his mouth and said that he wanted to see the Lord Pavilion Master. This naturally put her in a difficult position. There was no reason for her to go and inform him. "It's all right. You only have to tell him that I am Ling Han, and I believe that Fu Yuansheng should still reward you," Ling Han said with a smile. This was natural. He, the Alchemy Emperor, had personally arrived, so Fu Yuansheng would definitely be overjoyed. How could Xiaoying be willing to believe him? After all, Ling Han was only a young man of 17 or 18 years of age, so how could he possibly be acquainted with the Lord Pavilion Master? Even if the clan heads of the 8 great clans came personally, whether they wanted to meet or not would still depend on the mood of the Lord Pavilion Master. However, in the training that she had received, not offending a guest was the #1 priority. Thus she excused herself and said, "With my status, it is impossible for me to meet the Lord Pavilion Master. Please wait a moment, guest. Allow me to report to the person in charge." Ling Han naturally would not make things difficult for her, so he nodded and sat down at one side. Hu Niu followed suit and climbed onto Ling Han's lap, also sitting upright with a serious expression on her face. After a while, Xiaoying was seen walking over behind a man who looked to be in his 40s, a slightly panicked expression on her face. "Brat, so you are the one who wants to meet the Lord Pavilion Master?" This middle-aged man looked at Ling Han with a disdainful expression. He had already heard from Xiaoying what had happened previously. In his eyes, Ling Han was definitely short of money, and that was why he had deliberately said that he was acquainted with the Lord Pavilion Master, and wanted to use this kind of method to bargain. He was really too naive. Ling Han frowned and said, "Be more polite when you speak. If you have no money, then you have no money. What are you pretending to be capable for?" The middle-aged man humphed and laughed loudly. "If you are acquainted with the Lord Pavilion Master, I will eat this table." He pointed at a long table at the side. Ling Han showed a smile and said, "I had not thought that you would actually have such a hobby. If I did not satisfy you, I would be too unreasonable." "Full of nonsense," the middle-aged man said coldly. Chapter 80. You're right. This girl's teeth are really powerful. Lu Yutong raised her left hand and saw that her palm and elbow were both wrapped in bandages. It was obvious that she had been bitten. Even Ling Han had been accidentally bitten before, so it was clear that the little girl's sneak attack skills were impressive. More importantly, if one hadn't suffered, who would have thought that her teeth could be so sharp? This girl is definitely born in the year of the dog. Ling Han shook his head. Much more powerful than a dog. Born in the year of the tiger. Lu Yutong had suffered before, and shook her head with lingering fear. The first time she had indeed been careless, but the second time she had still been bitten even though she was on guard. It was enough to show how terrifying the wild girl was. Of course, this was also because she didn't want to hurt the other, or else no matter how sharp her teeth were, she would have been killed with a single slap. Where did she come from? Lu Yutong asked curiously. She's a savage raised by a tiger. As for the rest, I'm not sure. Ling Han squatted in front of the wild girl and stretched out his hand to tease her. Girl, you probably don't have a name, so I'll give you one. The wild girl kept opening and closing her small mouth, and her teeth made a loud noise as she chased after Ling Han's finger to bite. You were raised by a tiger, so I'll call you Hunyo, Ling Han said with a smile, then turned his head to ask Lu Yutong, does she have any birthmarks on her body? In the future, we can also help her find her birth parents. There really is. Lu Yutong nodded. There's a very strange mark on her ankle. I can't tell if it's natural, or if it was made after she was born. Ling Han lifted the blanket, and there was indeed a mark on the little girl's left ankle. It was about the size of a copper coin, and the pattern was very complicated. He really couldn't tell what it represented. Normally, such a complicated mark should have been made after birth, but there was no trace of the mark at all, and it seemed like it was natural. It was very strange. What do you plan to do with Hunyo? Lu Yutong asked. She had already developed feelings for this little girl. This little girl only thinks of herself as a wild beast now. If the arrangements are not appropriate, she will definitely cause trouble. Ling Han nodded and said, let her follow us for now. We'll decide what to do after she regains her intelligence. Hunyo didn't think of herself as a human at all. She was more like a wild cat or a small tiger cub. If clothes were put on her, she would directly tear them off. If she wasn't tied up, she was definitely more agile than a monkey. And what gave Ling Han even more of a headache was that she didn't eat cooked meat. Whether it was roasted meat or boiled meat, she didn't touch it at all. Instead, she stared at Ling Han's neck with a murderous look in her eyes. Clearly, she was more than happy to eat this feast. To get rid of her wild nature, the first step was to change her eating habits. Ling Han began to eat the roasted meat in front of the little girl, then placed the piece of meat in front of her and retreated. Hunyo endured and didn't move, but after a long while, her stomach began to growl, and her eyes became even more ferocious. However, she still endured and didn't eat. It wasn't until late at night that she finally couldn't bear it anymore, wriggled her body, and ate the roasted meat. Both her hands and feet were tied, so she could only wriggle like a worm. Her appetite was shockingly good, and such a large roasted pig's leg was quickly devoured by her. The little girl licked her lips as if she hadn't had enough, and the expression on her face was very strange, because she had never eaten such delicious meat before. On the second day, Ling Han continued to entertain others, and on the fourth day, Li Hao and the other old friends finally had the chance to meet with him. I really never thought that you would actually be able to obtain first place. That's right, really awesome, too amazing. I'm even more envious of Li Hao. He will soon be able to enter into Huyang University, and with Big Brother Ling's protection, he won't have to worry about being bullied by strangers in unfamiliar places. Lu Dong and the others spoke one after another as they pushed wine cups around. Their status was low, and they could only wait until the crowd had almost dispersed before they dared to gather with Ling Han. Today they naturally had to get Ling Han drunk no matter what. However, halfway through the drinks, Chan Pengju revealed a look of hesitation. After a long while he said, I might have gotten myself into big trouble. What is it? Everyone asked. Chan Pengju gritted his teeth and said, after returning from Balance Mountain, there was one time when I was drinking with one of my clansmen. I drank too much and I think I mentioned something about Hang Zhan. What? Li Hao and the others all stood up at the same time, their faces turning deathly pale. Hang Zhan was the grandson of the 7th elder of Stone Wolf Sect, and these days Stone Wolf Sect had been searching for the murderer. If the news was leaked, then it would definitely attract the attention of that 7th elder of Stone Wolf Sect, a powerful warrior of Gushing Spring tier. However, Ling Han did not take it too seriously. It was not as if he did not have the help of a Gushing Spring tier martial artist. Moreover, Stone Wolf Sect should know that there were 3 black-grade alchemists standing behind him, so they would definitely not dare to act rashly. Only that 7th elder could possibly go crazy and act rashly. After all, the one who died was his own grandson, and with his temperament, if he was fierce and hot-tempered, then it was indeed possible that he would come to kill them. Did you tell him or not? Lu Dong asked anxiously. Guaroc Town was under the jurisdiction of Stone Wolf Sect, and the 7th elder had a good reason to act. Even if he massacred their clans, the royal house of the Dayuan king would at most give some verbal punishment. After all, this was a world where the strong were revered. I really can't remember. I was really too drunk that day, Chun Pengju said with a long face. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, if that person from Stone Wolf sect really comes to kill his way to your clan, then tell him the truth and tell him to come find me. No, big brother Ling, we will definitely not betray you. That's right, how could we be so disloyal? Lu Dong and the others all shook their heads. As for whether they were speaking the truth or not, and how many of them were speaking the truth, that was another matter altogether. Ling Han smiled and said, no matter, this is the truth anyway. Moreover, I have the ability to protect myself, so I do not fear that seventh elder. On the other hand, I cannot guarantee your safety, so just listen to me and tell me the truth. Seeing that he was so insistent, Lu Dong and the others could only nod, hoping that Chun Pengju had not gone back on his word after drinking. That way everything would be fine. With something weighing on their minds, the atmosphere became very oppressive. Very soon, the banquet was over, and everyone returned to their own homes. When Ling Han returned to Tianyi, he saw that Lu Yutong was teaching Hunyo how to speak, but the wild little girl was extremely ferocious and did not pay any attention to her at all. She only continued to bare her teeth and roar, looking very much like a little tiger. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, you have to grasp her weakness. Doesn't the little girl like to eat? You have to use food as a reward. If she performs well, give it to her, and let her slowly learn to be obedient. Lu Yutong rolled her eyes at him, and said in annoyance, do you really think she is raising kittens and puppies? This little girl is much fiercer than kittens and puppies, Ling Han said, clicking his tongue. He stretched out his hand to pat Hunyo's head, and the little girl immediately bit him. Thankfully, he withdrew his hand quickly. Knock knock knock. Ling Han and Lu Yutong turned around at the same time, and saw an alchemy apprentice standing at the door. He said, young Master Ling, there is someone outside who claims to be from the Ling family of Grey Cloud Town. He has an urgent matter and wishes to see you. Ling Han walked out. What was the matter? His father had just returned, so it shouldn't be anything serious. Could it be the seventh elder of Stone Wolf sect? He was shocked and hurriedly broke into a run. Seeing this, Lu Yutong also left Hunyo behind and chased after him. Chapter 81. Let's go back a few days. Grey Cloud Town Chung family. A powerful aura suddenly spread out from the deepest part of the Chung family's mansion. It was extremely terrifying, and even a ninth-layer poly-elite like Chung Wenkuan felt a strong sense of fear from the depths of his heart. But Chung Wenkuan did not feel the slightest bit nervous. A look of wild joy appeared on his face, and he actually started dancing with joy. Third uncle has broken through. Ha ha ha, third uncle has broken through. Ling family, you guys were so arrogant before. But you would never have thought that my third uncle has been in seclusion all this time to break through to Gushing Spring Tier. His expression suddenly became stern, and he said, from today onwards, there will no longer be a Ling family in Grey Cloud Town. Ha 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 ha. A long laugh rang out, and a tall and thin old man walked into the main hall, his body exuding a terrifying wave of power. This was because he had just broken through and could not completely control his power yet. He was Chung Wenkuan's third uncle, Chung Jiyu. He was a martial arts fanatic, and had been the top elite of the Chung family for more than 10 years. However, he had no interest in the power of the family, and had always been in seclusion to break through to Gushing Spring Tier. Even many members of the Chung family thought that he had died long ago, and his hard work had paid off, as he had successfully broken through to Gushing Spring Tier. This was the strongest battle prowess in Grey Cloud Town, and could defeat all opponents. Greetings, third uncle, congratulations. Chung Wenkuan half knelt on the ground, his face filled with wild joy. And stand up. Chung Jiyu raised his hand, his eyes turned, and he said, call Xiao Yuan and the others over. I haven't seen them for many years. Third uncle, Xiao Yuan is already dead. Chung Wenkuan said sorrowfully. What? Chung Jiyu suddenly slammed the table. Pung! This table made of fine sandalwood instantly turned into dust. His eyes widened in anger, and he said, who killed my grandson? Chung Xiao Yuan was Chung Jiyu's own grandson, and had inherited his talent, which was why he was accepted as a disciple by Stone Wolf sect. Chung Shuang and Chung Xiang did not have this qualification. The little bastard of the Ling family, Ling Han. Chung Wenkuan immediately said, "Pa." Chung Jiyu raised his hand and brought it down, giving Chung Wenkuan a slap on the face. He scoffed and said, "Then what are you still sitting here for? Why didn't you bring that little bastard's head to see me?" Chung Wenkuan did not even dare to show the slightest bit of temper. In front of a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear, he could not even block a single finger. He hurriedly knelt down and said, "How could Wenkuan not want to take revenge for Xiao Yuan? It's just that he has an elder from Stone Wolf sect backing him up. I can't touch him." An elder of Stone Wolf sect. Chung Jiyu's eyes narrowed slightly. The elders of Stone Wolf sect were all in gushing spring tier, and he had just broken through to this tier. No matter which one he fought, he would not be a match for them. However, he immediately snorted and said, "That little bastard only flattered that elder at most. Even if I killed him, that elder wouldn't have a falling out with me. Let's go. Immediately follow me to slaughter our way to the Ling family. He dared to kill my grandson, so I'm going to slaughter every single member of the Ling family." Chung Wenkuan was naturally overjoyed. He was afraid that Chung Jiyu would shrink back. Thankfully, Chung Xiaoyuan was dead, which made Chung Jiyu so furious that he was not even afraid of an elder of Stone Wolf sect. The Chung family moved out in force, all of them brimming with killing intent as they headed towards the Ling family. Their ostentatious behavior naturally alerted the smaller clans in the town, who all came out to watch. What's going on with the Chung family? Could it be that they're going to start a war with some clan? Aside from the Ling family, which other clan is worthy of the Chung family moving out in such a grand manner? That can't be. The Ling family's power is not inferior to the Chung family at all. A war between the two clans would only result in both sides suffering heavy losses. The Chung family wouldn't be so stupid, would they? That's not right, that's not right. Don't you know that the Chung family is having a hard time now? I've heard that their economic lifeline has suffered a full-scale attack from the Ling family, and now they can't even afford to pay the salaries of their servants. Yes, I've heard that too. These days, a great many servants and guards of the Chung family have secretly run away. The situation is actually that bad? No wonder the Chung family is putting their lives on the line. Otherwise, they would be destroyed by the Ling family in future. If they put their lives on the line now, at least they still have a chance of winning. Chung Wenkuan heard the discussions of these people, and could not help but smirk coldly. How could it be possible to put their lives on the line? They now had a powerful warrior of gushing spring tier keeping watch, and this time they were going to wipe out the Ling family. Putting their lives on the line. Only the Ling family needed to put their lives on the line, but it was completely useless. They would only be suppressed by a single finger of a powerful warrior of gushing spring tier. The Chung family advanced majestically, and the townspeople followed behind them to watch the show. This was a war between two great clans, and if they missed it, they would regret it for the rest of their lives. Very soon, they came from the east side of the town to the west side, where the Ling family resided. With such a big battle formation, it naturally alerted the Ling family. Ling Dongxing just happened to return, and immediately led the crowd out. Head of the Ling family, long time no see. Chung Wenkuan pressed his hand down, and all the members of the Chung family stopped. He smiled at Ling Dongxing, filled with pride, because this old rival of his would very soon kneel down and submit in front of him. Ling Dongxing frowned. This was not a friendly visit. He raised his voice and said, "Brother Chung has brought so many people here. Are you here to demonstrate your might?" Ha 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 ha. Chung Wenkuan laughed loudly, then stopped abruptly and said darkly, "That's right, I'm here today to demonstrate my might. Ling Dongxing, quickly order your clansmen to surrender, and I can consider killing a few less." Chung Wenkuan, have you gone senile? Ling Dongxing said coldly. This was really a great joke. You think I'm joking? Chung Wenkuan laughed coldly. Aren't you? Ling Dongxing asked in return. Of course not. A cold voice sounded and a tall and skinny elder walked out of the crowd, passing by Chung Wenkuan, his face full of killing intent. Who is this old man? The surrounding crowd was all curious. The Chung family has someone like this. His status is not lower than Chung Wenkuan's. I remember now, he's Chung Jiyu. An elder suddenly exclaimed. Everyone said he was dead. I didn't expect him to still be alive. Ling Dongxing naturally recognized Cheng Jiyu, even though he was much older now. He cupped his hands, showing respect to the other party for being a generation older than him. But now that the dignity of both clans was at stake, he naturally could not give in. He said, "If the Cheng family insists on fighting, there is no one in the Ling family who is afraid of death." "Hung, you think you're worthy of being my Cheng family's enemy?" Cheng Jiyu stretched out his hand and pressed down towards Ling Dongxing. "I'll suppress you first. You're going too far." Ling Dongxing raised his palm to counterattack. He had been known as the #1 genius of Grey Cloud Town, so his abilities were naturally extraordinary. As his palms moved, over 10 palm prints were formed, and the speed of his attacks was extremely fast. A firefly is not worthy of competing with the sun and moon. Cheng Jiyu pointed out with a finger, and actually formed a giant palm the size of a millstone, pressing down towards Ling Dongxing. Origin power taking form. Gushing spring tear. Ling Dongxing exclaimed in shock, his face instantly turning pale. He finally understood where the confidence of the Cheng family came from. Cheng Jiyu had actually broken through to gushing spring tear. Reading on one's phone was even more refreshing. Chapter 82. The large hand of origin power slammed down and suppressed Ling Dongxing without any suspense, directly sealing his dantian. Now, his power was not much stronger than a normal person's. Ha 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 ha. Cheng Wenkuan laughed loudly, feeling extremely comfortable and happy. Ever since he awakened his spirit base and started cultivating, he had always compared himself to Ling Dongxing, but he was always suppressed by Ling Dongxing, and could only be the second in line. Thankfully, Ling Dongxing had not broken through to gushing spring tear, which gave him a sliver of hope. Now this formidable opponent that had been pressing down on him was so easily suppressed. How could he not be excited? But he was also very shocked. Gushing spring tear was too strong. Cheng Jiyu had just broken through, but Ling Dongxing was not even a match for him. Capture them all. Whoever dares to resist, kill without mercy, he said coldly. With a wave of his hand, the Cheng family martial artists behind him immediately charged out, charging towards the Ling family with an imposing manner. On the other hand, because the clan head of the Ling family was restrained, and the other side had a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear, their morale naturally plummeted, and they could not put up any effective resistance. A few polytier clansmen still wanted to escape, but Cheng Jiyu easily caught up to them and beat them half to death with a single palm strike. I never thought that the Cheng family actually had a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear. He should have just broken through, or else he wouldn't have waited until now to counterattack. The wheel of fortune really changes in 30 years. Who would have thought that when the Cheng family was about to be forced into a desperate situation, they would come up with such a great comeback? With the temperament of the Cheng family, I'm afraid no one from the Ling family will be able to escape with their lives. In future, the Cheng family will have the final say in the town. Our days will probably not be easy. While everyone was shocked by Cheng Jiyu's power, they could not help but shake their heads and sigh. The members of the Cheng family were all arrogant and domineering. In future, they would be the dominant family, and the townspeople would not have good days. In less than half an hour, almost all the members of the Ling family were captured. Only a few members who were doing business outside were lucky enough to escape. Where's Ling Han? Cheng Jiyu came to stand in front of Ling Dongxing, his eyes filled with killing intent. He had sent people to search for Ling Han, but they had not found him anywhere. Ha 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 ha. Ling Dongxing laughed. My son has been accepted as a disciple by Huyang University. If you dare to touch him, you will be the enemy of Rain Country royalty. Cheng Wenkuan walked over and said, Your useless son can also enter Huyang University. Who are you trying to fool? Ling Dongxing spat on the ground and said, Not only has my son entered Huyang University, he is also the champion of this year's Deyuan tournament. In future, he will at least reach the spiritual ocean tier. Just you wait. Bullshit. Cheng Wenkuan snorted. With just your son you want to win first place in the Deyuan tournament? Ling Dongxing, you really know how to indulge in fantasy. Actually thinking of using such ridiculous words to fool us. Actually, Cheng Wenkuan still believed that Ling Han could enter Huyang University. After all, Cheng Xiaoyuan had been defeated by Ling Han. But to say that Ling Han could win first place, that would really be the biggest joke in the world. This year's De Yuan tournament was a gathering of geniuses. There were powerful warriors like the fourth prince and Jin Wuji, as well as new talents like Bailey Tungyun and Xia Zhongguang. How could Ling Han possibly win? So what if he has been accepted by Huyang University? As long as he does not enter Huyang University, he is not a disciple of Huyang University. Cheng Wenkuan was filled with killing intent. He then turned to Cheng Jiyu and said, "Third uncle, why don't we hang them all at the entrance of the town? And when that little beast Ling Han returns, we can kill them all." "Alright, let's do that. I will dig out that little bastard Ling Han's heart and lungs in front of him, and let him have a taste of losing a descendant." Cheng Jiyu snorted coldly. "We only need to leave a dozen or so alive and kill the rest." Cheng Wenkuan said darkly. "Cheng Wenkuan, don't you dare." Ling Dongxing roared fiercely. The Ling family alone had several hundred clansmen, and adding on the servants, guards and other personnel who did not share the same surname, the total number had reached more than 1,000. Now that there were only a dozen or so left alive, how many people would he have to kill? "Why wouldn't I dare?" Cheng Wenkuan laughed coldly. This was to establish his might, to use the lives of the Ling family as a sacrifice, to let the people of Grey Cloud Town know that this was the consequence of going against the Cheng family. "Kill them!" he shouted loudly. Pu piu piu, one after another, heads were chopped off. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses littered the ground. Not every member of the Ling family was unafraid of death. Many begged for mercy, but it was useless. The Cheng family was determined to annihilate the Ling family, and they did not accept any surrender at all. They only killed, turning the entire Ling family into a cave of death. Ling Dongxing's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. These were all members of the Ling family, and as the head of the family, how could his heart not bleed? But he was more worried about his son. What if Ling Han returned, and he fell into the hands of the Cheng family? Though Ling Han was on friendly terms with many black great alchemists, the problem was, would the Cheng family believe him? Furthermore, the news that Ling Han had obtained the first place in the Dayuan tournament had not yet spread, so the Cheng family would naturally not have any qualms. If his son died, then even if he died, how would he have the face to see his wife? His heart was burning with anxiety, but there was nothing he could do. The remaining 10 or so members of the Ling family were dragged to the eastern entrance of the town. Here, 10 or so short wooden stakes had been temporarily erected. Ling Dongxing and the others Dantian had all been sealed, and they were all kneeling on the ground, their hands and feet tied behind their backs to the wooden stakes. "Woo woo woo, big brother Xiong." Ling Zixian cried loudly. She was one of the few who were still alive, but she might not be the lucky one. "Pa!" One of the Cheng family members slapped her across the face and shouted, "Don't cry." But Ling Zixian cried even louder, causing him to be enraged, and he drew the saber from his waist. "Forget it. Forget it," someone on the side advised. Perhaps it was because Ling Zixian was too young that he had become addicted to her. Just let her cry all she wants, and use it as a deterrent. This is the result of going against our Cheng family. What bullshit clan head, isn't he still being stepped on by my foot? One of them stepped on Ling Dongxing's head, and even deliberately smeared the dirt from the bottom of his shoe onto Ling Dongxing's face, causing Ling Dongxing to tremble in anger. Ha ha ha, so what if he's at the 9th layer of poly? Now, he can even easily step on me, who is only at the 6th layer of body refining tier. The Ling family is finished. Now, Grey Cloud Town belongs to our Cheng family. A night had passed, and the dozen or so members of the Ling family were all shivering from the bitter cold. Frost had formed on their hair, and they had not had any water or rice for almost a day, causing their stomachs to rumble with hunger. Cheng Wenkuan had appeared, and he wanted to see his archenemy lose hope bit by bit. Finally, when his only son died in front of him, he would lose all hope. At that time, he would kill Ling Dongxing, and put an end to the competition between the two of them that had lasted for over 30 years. "Ling Dongxing, do you regret it now?" He mocked and ridiculed, and only left after he had said enough. The next day, he appeared on time, and continued to tease this former rival of his. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Ling Dongxing and the dozen or so others were only left with half of their lives. They had not eaten for 3 whole days, and if not for the fact that they had been given some water, they would definitely have died from dehydration. But now they were also extremely weak, and they did not even have the strength to curse. Report. Someone ran over and half knelt. Reporting to Lord Clan Head. Traces of Ling Han have been discovered. He is currently 50 kilometers away from the town. Ha 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 ha. Chang Wenkuan was startled at first, and then he laughed loudly. He waved his hand and said, "Quickly go and get third uncle. He will be able to take revenge soon." Chapter 83. Ha 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 ha. Theft is a shameless and evil act in the first place. What more when it involves the third imperial prince? Wei Heelu could not help but laugh loudly. At that time, even if the academy did not want to pursue the matter, now that it involved the imperial clan, even Wu Songlin's face would not be of any use. There was no small matter in the imperial clan. Ling Han dared to steal something belonging to the third imperial prince. That was definitely a dead end. However, there has to be a reason, right? Otherwise, why would the thief steal this thing? Wei Hidong very quickly stopped laughing and asked Feng Luo. Feng Luo laughed mischievously and said, "This is a keepsake of the third imperial prince, and is only gifted to an extremely few people. Holding such a keepsake means that one is a close friend of the third imperial prince. Not only is it a symbol of one's identity and status, all the expenses incurred in the various restaurants and inns of the imperial city can be recorded, and the third imperial prince will be responsible for paying." Yet, Wei Heelu looked envious. Although he was a genius alchemist, he had not obtained the third imperial prince's favor, and was thus gifted with such a keepsake. Now, a profligate young master actually had one in his possession, so how could he not be envious? Feng Luo smiled proudly. This was something that Feng Yan had specially gifted to him, in case he caused trouble in the imperial city. With the keepsake of the third imperial prince, everyone would have to give him some face. He patted Wei Heel's shoulder, and said, "Young Master Wei, I'll leave the matter of framing him to you." Wei Heelu looked like he was in a difficult position. He only knew how to concoct alchemical pills, and he only knew how to eat, drink, and play around. However, he had never done something like framing someone before. Moreover, in the past there were too many people who wanted to suck up to him. He only needed to open his mouth, and there would naturally be people who would do it for him. There was no need for him to do it himself. "What? You're not willing?" Feng Luo laughed coldly. He pretended to put away the keepsake. "Then forget it. I only wanted to help you vent your anger. Since you're not willing, I won't force you." "Wait," Wei Heelu hurriedly called out. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'll do it." His heart was filled with hatred. The reason why he had offended Ling Han was because he wanted to help Feng Luo vent his anger. But now, this guy actually said that he wanted to help him vent his anger. He was really turning his back on him. But after he had been abandoned by Wu Songlin, he was no longer the young Master Wei of the past. He was only a yellow-grade low-level alchemist, so did he have the right to stand against Feng Luo? Behind Feng Luo stood a genius of martial arts. Feng Luo was faintly showing signs of approaching the level of the third imperial prince, Ken Yi, and other peerless geniuses of his generation. His future was limitless, so how could a down-and-out alchemist like him compare to him? When one was under someone else's roof, he had no choice but to lower his head. If he rejected Feng Luo now, that would mean that he had cut off his only possible future. If he followed Wu Songlin, he might be able to leave Rain Country in future, and escape from Wu Songlin's shadow. He took the violet badge and silently walked to Feng Luo's side. He stood with his hands by his side, and placed himself in a relatively lower position. Ha 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 ha. Feng Luo laughed loudly, his face filled with pride. Even his eldest brother would not have thought that he would actually be able to subdue a slightly talented alchemist. Who would still dare to say that he was a profligate young master? Try and subdue a yellow-grade alchemist. Wei Heelu lowered his head, his eyes filled with regret. But now that things had come to this, how could he still turn back? After a free meal, Qi Zhantai naturally returned to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, while Ling Han brought Hu Niu around for a while to buy some materials to set up an array. Only then did he return to the academy. He was not in a hurry to take the second star pill. Instead, he began to set up an array around the courtyard. This was an early warning array. Anyone who entered the courtyard would be alerted by the array, and would send out a warning that only he could receive. Even if he was not in the courtyard, there would still be some clues left behind, telling him that an outsider had intruded into this courtyard. There was nothing he could do about it. The materials he had on hand were limited, so he could only set up such a simple array. Otherwise, if it had been in his last life, even a powerful warrior of Heaven tier might not have dared to barge into the array that he had set up. "I'll just make do with it. I don't have any enemies right now anyways," he mumbled. If these words were heard by Lu Yutong, Qi Yongyi, and the others, they would definitely jump out to object. He actually dared to say that he didn't have any enemies. Wu Bo was one, Feng Yan was another, He Junchun was another, and so were Nangongji. These people were not to be trifled with, especially Wu Bo and Feng Yan. One was a young master of the direct line of descent of the Wu clan, while the other was a genius of martial arts who had the potential to become a king tier. If these two were not considered enemies, then who was? Unfortunately, they did not know that although Ling Han's current cultivation level was weak, deep in his bones was the pride of a powerful warrior of Heaven tier. How could he possibly care about these small fries? Moreover, in his last life his personality had been like this. He was incomparably proud, and would definitely not lower his head to anyone. This array was very simple, so it did not take Ling Han long to finish setting it up. Then, he began to take the second star pill to strengthen his divine sense. As far as Ling Han knew, there was no cultivation technique in this world that could strengthen one's divine sense. Only when one's cultivation level increased would one's divine sense correspondingly strengthen to the next level. This was a passive process. For example, when he had been in Heaven tier in his last life, he only had to slightly wave his spiritual power, and he could even directly erase the soul of a powerful warrior of spiritual infant tier. But he had always suspected that since the divine sense could be recovered through cultivation techniques, strengthened through alchemical pills and godly medicines, then it should also be possible to cultivate through cultivation techniques. It was just that there was no such cultivation technique in circulation now. This was not impossible. Because if he had not come from 10,000 years ago, how would he know that so many pill recipes had been lost in the passage of time? Obviously, a great many good things had disappeared in the course of history. It was so in this life, so could it be that his last life would not be an exception? A definite example was that during the last period of his last life, he had once walked into a great many ancient sites, and obtained some ancient pill recipes from them, which similarly belonged to the category that had been lost in the passage of time. Thus, many years ago, perhaps there had been cultivation techniques that could temper the divine sense. As he thought about this, he continued to absorb the medicinal effects of the second star pill. His whole body instantly felt incredibly comfortable, because his soul was responsible for all the sensations in his body. Now that his divine sense had become stronger, he naturally felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. One after another, he very soon swallowed all 7 second star pills. The power of my soul has almost doubled. Ling Han opened his eyes, and his gaze became even deeper, as if it was a bottomless pit, causing others to involuntarily sink into it. He smiled. This is the benefit of having a strong divine sense. I can use my divine sense to oppress my opponent, and this can be used as a special move. If others are not on guard, it is very possible that they will be instantly killed by me. The strength of my soul now should be equivalent to that of Gushing Spring tier. His smile involuntarily widened. This means that I will be able to cultivate at the speed of Gushing Spring tier's spiritual chi absorption. Added with my immortal grade spirit base I'm afraid that even I would be shocked by the speed of my cultivation. Hurry up and reach Gushing Spring tier. Only when I reach Gushing Spring tier will I be able to cultivate black grade martial arts techniques. That is the true beginning of martial arts. Now I have all the secret techniques in my arsenal, yet I am unable to use them. This kind of feeling is really terrible. There's a mouse that ran in. Chapter 84. Ta 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 ta, the sound of galloping hooves could be heard. Zhu He Xian and Zhang Wei Shan had arrived just a short while later, causing Lu Yutong to feel much more assured. She leapt off the horse and began to rescue Ling Dongxing and the others, so that Ling Han would not have to worry about anything. "Father, eat this vitality protection pill." Ling Han took out a pill bottle, poured out a green pill, and fed it to Ling Dongxing. Ling Dongxing did not feel anything. Since it was given to him by his son, he would eat it. However, Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan were so shocked that their eyes were wide open. Vitality protection pill was also a lost pill, and its effects were even better than the reverse pill. Although the name of the reverse pill was very domineering compared to the vitality protection pill, it was still a far cry. Both of them were yellow-grade high-level pills, but they were extremely difficult to concoct. Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan, after obtaining the complete prescription, had not been able to concoct the reverse pill even after so many days, but Ling Han had immediately concocted the even more difficult vitality protection pill. How could the two of them not be so shocked that their eyes were wide open? Ling Han distributed the vitality protection pill to the remaining 10 or so members of the Ling family. This vitality protection pill was an improved version of the reverse pill that he had concocted in his previous life, so its effects were naturally much better. Big brother Han Dexiong is dead, and father and mother are also dead. Woo woo woo. Ling Zixian lay weakly in Ling Han's arms, sobbing. However, no tears came out of her eyes, because her tears had long since dried up. "I will avenge Dexiong, I will avenge everyone." Ling Han caressed the little girl's back and said, "Be good, Xian Xian. Sleep, sleep, you'll be fine." The little girl nodded. After these 4 days of suffering, she had long since reached her limit. She quickly fell asleep in Ling Han's arms. Ling Han handed the little girl over to Lu Yutong, then turned his gaze back to Chang Wenkuan, his killing intent blazing. Although Hu Niu was tied up and lying on the horse's back, she had grown up with ferocious beasts, so she was very sensitive to killing intent. Instantly, she raised her head and let out a roar, looking extremely excited. "How is that possible? How could you form 5 flashes of sword qi?" Chang Wenkuan struggled to get up from the ground. His nose had collapsed, his mouth was crooked, and his face was covered in blood. "How do you want to die?" Ling Han asked coldly. "Do you want to be dismembered, or shot in the head? I'll give you a choice." "Little bastard, don't get cocky. Even if you formed 5 flashes of sword qi, it's still useless. In front of absolute power, only death awaits you," shouted Chang Wenkuan. "When my third uncle arrives, all of you will die." Ling Han shook his head and said, "Hearing your words, I really thought I was facing a young profligate young master in his teens who only knows how to use the adults in his family to scare people. Humph, when the old thing arrives, I'll naturally chop off his dog head." "Bullshit!" Chang Wenkuan screamed. He was once again kicked to the ground by Ling Han. He was extremely humiliated and furious. Being stepped on in the face by someone was the most humiliating thing, and the person who stepped on him was actually the son of his sworn enemy. It was fine that he could not win against Ling Dongxing, but even Ling Dongxing's son could step on his face. How could he endure this? At this time, the townspeople had also received the news and came out to watch the commotion. The people nearby had all arrived, and when they saw Ling Han majestically step on Chang Wenkuan's face, everyone was petrified. Before Chang Jiyu appeared, the publicly acknowledged strongest elites of Grey Cloud Town were Ling Dongxing and Chang Wenkuan. They were both in the 9th layer of Pali and were invincible. Now this former strongest elite was actually stepped on by Ling Han. Who could believe their own eyes? This was once a famous piece of trash. Many disciples of Tsangyun College recalled what Lu Yutong had once said. After 3 months, everyone could only look up to Ling Han. As expected, he could even step on Chang Wenkuan now, so who could not look up to him? But the problem was, the current strongest elite of Grey Cloud Town was Chang Jiyu, an ultimate elite of Gushing Spring Tier. No matter how strong Ling Han was, could he be stronger than Gushing Spring Tier? It's over. Once Chang Jiyu arrives, Ling Han will definitely be finished. AI, what a pity for such a genius. Otherwise, he might be able to become a powerful warrior of Spiritual Ocean Tier in the future. Spiritual Ocean Tier, you really dare to say that? That's as strong as the Deyuan King. Think about it, Ling Han is only 17 years old now, but he can already step on Chang Wenkuan. How terrifying is his talent? That's true. Everyone whispered to each other. They all felt that Ling Han was completely unfavorable, that he had come back to die. The strength of gushing spring tear was deeply ingrained in everyone's bones, especially in a small place like Grey Cloud Town. That was a godlike existence. Hung. It was at this moment that a figure flew out from the town. His speed was extremely fast, so fast that even a galloping horse could not catch up. In just an instant he had appeared nearby. It was Chang Jiyu. Little bastard, you are Ling Han, the evil thief who killed my grandson. Chang Jiyu glared at Ling Han, his eyes looking as if he wanted to eat him alive. I am Ling Han, and today will be the day you die. Ling Han retorted. Ha 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 ha. I am a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear. What right do you have to take my life? Chang Jiyu was in no hurry to attack. This was the main culprit who had killed his grandson, so he wanted to slowly torture this little bastard to death. What if we attack? Zhu Hexian and Zhang Wei Shan both stepped out at the same time. And who the hell are you two? Huh? Chang Jiyu was indifferent at first, but when his eyes swept over the two of them, his expression instantly changed and he exclaimed, gushing spring tear. Not only were they in gushing spring tear, but there were two of them. What? The townspeople all exclaimed in shock. These two unprepossessing old men were actually powerful warriors of gushing spring tear as well? Hiss, no wonder Ling Han dared to return. So he had invited a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear to help him. Chang Jiyu's expression instantly turned serious, and he no longer dared to underestimate them in the slightest. He said, fellow Taoists, this man has a grudge against me for killing my grandson. No matter what benefits he has promised you, I will give you double the amount. I hope that you will not interfere. Zhu Hexian and Zhang Wei Shan exchanged a look, and both laughed loudly. Double the amount? Who the hell are you? How many pill recipes do you have? And how much understanding do you have of alchemy? You actually dare to boast like this? Impudence. Young friend Ling's matter is our matter as well. Zhang Wei Shan spoke up. The one with the surname Chung, if you surrender now, I can still plead with young friend Ling to grant you a quick death. Young friend Ling. Hiss. Everyone gritted their teeth and drew in a breath of cold air. Two powerful warriors of gushing spring tear actually addressed Ling Han as young friend, and they even looked as if they were going through thick and thin together. What kind of friendship was this? Thankfully, both Zhu Hexian and Zhang Wei Shan did not put on the badge of an alchemist. Otherwise, these townspeople would be even more shocked, because a black-grade low-level alchemist had a higher status than a powerful warrior of gushing spring tear. Must the two of you do this? Chang Jiyu asked darkly. He had just broken through to gushing spring tear, and his confidence was at its peak. Moreover, he definitely did not believe that two powerful warriors of gushing spring tear would risk their lives for the sake of Ling Han. No matter how he thought about it, he could not think of such a reason. Pong 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 pong, there was a cloud of dust in the distance, and a group of people was quickly approaching. Brother Ling, I've brought some people to lend you a hand. This group of people soon arrived near, and a young man leaped down from his horse, clasped his hands in greeting to Ling Han and said, it was Bailey Tung Yun. Chapter 85. Bailey Tung Yun did not attract much attention, but the group of men dressed in the same attire behind him caused everyone to be shocked, because there were two words embroidered on each of their chests. Bailey. Within the territory of Diyuan City, there was only one party that dared to use the name Bailey, and that was the Bailey sect. One of the four most powerful parties under the royal house of Diyuan. Who? Quite a number of people choked. Though they did not recognize Bailey Tung Yun, since he was able to recruit so many disciples of the Bailey sect, his status would definitely not be low. Yet he addressed Ling Han as his brother, so what did that mean? Ling Han and the Bailey sect were on very good terms. Chang Jiyu's expression changed again. No matter how much confidence he had, he did not think that he had the ability to stand against the Bailey sect. They had an elite in the 9th layer of gushing spring tear, and even 100 of him would not be a match for them. His only hope now was that this seemingly awesome brat did not have a very high status in the Bailey sect. Before the first wave had subsided, another wave arose. Dust rose in the distance, and a group of people was quickly galloping over. Haha, so Brother Bailey has arrived first. A young man leaped off his horse. It was Jin Wuji. He raised his clasped hands in greeting at Ling Han, and said, "Brother Ling, I've also brought some people from the Han clan to cheer for you. You actually dared to injure Uncle Ling. I'd like to see who would be so daring." He had already resolved his grudge with Ling Han, and their relationship was now quite good. Chang Ji could not help but humph and said, "And who are you? Such arrogance! How dare you?" A guard of the Jin clan jumped out. "Are you blind? This is our third young master, Jin Wuji." "Who?" The townspeople's mood that had just recovered instantly turned into a great wave of shock. Who was Jin Wuji? He was the third young master of the Jin clan, and also the most talented member of the younger generation of the Jin clan. He had a very high chance of inheriting the position of clan head in the future. If that was the case, then could the brother Bailey that Jin Wuji spoke of be Bailey Tingyun of the Bailey sect? Because the sect leader of the Bailey sect only had one son, and he should be about 16 or 17 years old. It could be said that the two strongest forces of Dayuan City had both come, and they were not just any random person. One was the young sect leader, and the other was the future clan leader. Moreover, both of them were brothers with Ling Han. Impersonated, how could that be possible? Who would dare to impersonate these two people in Dayuan City? Chang Jiyu finally showed an expression of unease. Ling Han was currently protected by two great forces, and even if he could really take Ling Han's life amidst an army of 10,000, in the future, he would definitely be hunted down by these two great forces. For a moment he was caught in a dilemma. Should he take revenge or give up? He did not realize that what happened today was not something that he could just give up. As early as when he attacked the Ling family, his fate had already been sealed. Death. Gallop, 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 galloped over from afar. The townsfolk were already numb. They wondered if another disciple of a super faction had come, right? Ha ha ha, Brother Jean, Brother Bailey, you really came quickly. With a long laugh, Li Dongyu leapt off his horse and strode over. He said, "Brother Ling, if you need my Stone Wolf sect, just say the word." When he said this, everyone was greatly shocked. Although the Jin clan and the Bailey sect were powerful, they were still too far away from them. However, the Stone Wolf sect was the true ruler of this place. Ma Lang, who had come previously, had already caused everyone to be filled with dread. Now that this person was able to call Jin Wuji and Bailey Tungyun brothers, his status was definitely above Ma Lang's. Chung Wenkuan was about to cry. What was going on? Why did the super factions of Dayuan City come one after another? And they were all helping Ling Han. The Jin clan, the Bailey sect, the Stone Wolf sect. Any one of them would only need to lift a finger to exterminate the Chung family a dozen times over. Thank you, everyone. After I kill my enemies, I will drink with all of you. Ling Han cupped his hands and said, "You can help me exterminate the Chung family. I only want these two main culprits. Leave it to us." Jin Wuji and the other two readily agreed. Not to mention the fact that all three of them were working together. Any one of their forces could easily exterminate the Chung family. No. Chung Wenkuan said, trembling, "You can't do this, you can't do this. When you were exterminating my Ling family, why were you so ruthless?" Ling Han asked darkly, "I have always been a fair person. If people respect me, I will respect them tenfold. But if anyone dares to harm even a single hair on my family, I will return the favor 100-fold. Jin Wuji and the other two waved their hands, and led their men and left with a whistling sound. Without an elite warrior like Chung Jiyu standing guard, what was the Chung family? "Stop!" Chung Jiyu shouted loudly. He naturally could not watch as his clan was exterminated. However, he had just taken a step when he saw Zhu He Exine and Zhang Wei Shan leaping out at the same time, blocking him from the front and back. Tung tung tung. It was at this moment that more and more people rushed over. There were the small clans of Dayuan City, as well as the forces of other towns. Some even had elite warriors of Gushing Spring tier among their ranks. They came in waves, practically drowning Grey Cloud Town. This was too terrifying. Now, aside from the royal house of the Dayuan king, almost all the forces that could be ranked were here. These people had all come because of Ling Han. Since when had this trash of a young master actually become so young? Chung Wenkuan's face was ashen. It seemed that the Chung family would not be able to escape this calamity today. He hated himself for not killing Ling Dongxing. That way, He would at least be able to drag his mortal enemy down with him, and he would not be lonely on the road to the netherworld. Pa! Ling Han's foot landed heavily on Cheng Wenkuan's face. Old dog, even at this time, you still dare to harbor evil thoughts. Ha 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 ha, so what if I die? There will still be the members of your Ling family to die with me. Cheng Wenkuan knew that it was impossible for him to escape death, so he might as well throw caution to the wind, glaring angrily at Ling Han. Pa! Ling Han's foot landed again, shattering all the teeth in Cheng Wenkuan's mouth. He was in so much pain that he flailed his arms and legs, but with Ling Han stepping on him, he could only continue to struggle on the ground. Brother Ling! A tall young man walked out from the crowd, his body exuding an astonishing aura. It was Qi Yongyi. We pay our respects to the fourth prince. The surrounding people all knelt down to pay their respects. Fourth prince. The people of Grey Cloud Town stared blankly for quite a while before they also knelt down to pay their respects, their hearts filled with shock. Now, all the factions of Deyuan City had gathered, and there was only one reason. Ling Han. What kind of magic did he actually possess? At this moment, Cheng Wenkuan had completely lost all hope. Even the royal house of the Deyuan king had come because of Ling Han, so what hope did the Cheng family still have? Are you all forcing me to put my life on the line? Cheng Jiyu shouted loudly, his eyes wide with rage. With the situation today, the Cheng family was destined to be annihilated. Since that was the case, he definitely had to escape with his life, and find a chance to kill off Ling Han in the future. Not just Ling Han, but also the surviving members of the Ling family. Only death awaits you, Zhu Hexian said coldly. Since Cheng Wen dared to harm his father, who was half his master, this caused the old man to be enraged. Chapter 86. Cheng Jiyu fought with his life on the line. He wanted to carve out a path of blood, and then return for revenge. Logically speaking, even if there were 3 of him, he would not be a match for either Zhu Hexian or Zhang Weishan, what more when the 2 of them joined forces, but a gushing spring-tier warrior fighting with his life on the line was still quite terrifying. Even Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan did not dare to fight him head-on, and they did not want to be dragged down by him at all. Moreover, how long could he last if he fought with his life on the line? They only needed to delay him, and when he was done, Cheng Jiyu's battle prowess would naturally drop greatly, and it would be a piece of cake to deal with him then. Little bastard, you will definitely die. All of your Ling family will die. Cheng Wenkuan shouted harshly. As long as Cheng Jiyu managed to escape with his life, the Ling family was destined to be annihilated. Could it be that Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan would stay by the Ling family all day? Noisy! Ling Han humphed coldly, and stomped down with his foot. Pa Cheng Wenkuan's entire head was crushed into a pulp, and a spray of blood gushed out. The headless body struggled for quite a while before it finally stopped. This scene caused everyone around to be speechless, thinking that this young man was really iron-blooded. It was impossible for him to kill someone, but what was frightening was that he was so callous, crushing a person's head with a single stomp. Yet his expression did not change at all. It was too terrifying. This brat from the Ling family has the right to become a ruler. He does not show mercy to his enemies, and kills without mercy. That's right. Those who are soft-hearted will not live long no matter how talented they are. But when I realized this, I was already in my early 30s, and this brat from the Ling family is only 17 years old now. Really incredible. Yet Hunyo's eyes lit up. She had the instincts of a wild beast, and could keenly sense the killing intent that Ling Han was exuding at this moment. This caused her to feel both fear and excitement, because she felt a sense of familiarity. Her body wriggled and she really wanted to throw herself at Ling Han's side, but both her hands and feet were bound, so she could only struggle in vain. Although Ling Han had killed one of the main culprits, his anger did not subside. The pitiful state of his father and his clansmen lingered in his mind, causing his killing intent to burn even more intensely. He stared fixedly at Cheng Jiyu. This was the other main culprit, and could also be considered the main culprit. Because if not for Cheng Jiyu's existence, how would the Cheng family have dared to make a move against the Ling family? He had to end this with his own hands. Get out of the way! He roared loudly and shot out, charging towards Cheng Jiyu. Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan were both shocked and wanted to stop Ling Han so that he wouldn't be in danger. However, Ling Han shouted, "I want to take down this old dog with my own hands. Get out of my way." His expression was resolute, as if he wouldn't allow them to refuse. Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan could only retreat, but they were already prepared. The moment Ling Han was in danger, they would lend a helping hand, even if they would be reprimanded by Ling Han. Ling Han channeled Lone Wolf's blood, and his power, which was originally equivalent to the 8th layer of Pali, was further increased. However, since he was not injured, the increase in Lone Wolf's blood was not very great, and only allowed him to reach the peak period of the 8th layer of Pali. But with 5 flashes of sword chi, and added with the shocking electricity sword technique, the power was still terrifying. Cheng Jiyu, however, was unafraid. With a light humph, he struck out with his palms repeatedly, which turned into several gigantic hands of origin power that slammed towards Ling Han. These gigantic hands of origin power were extremely solid, and easily shattered the sword chi, displaying the full might of an elite of gushing spring tier. "Gagaga, little bastard. You are seeking your own death." Cheng Jiyu was overjoyed. He could tell that whether it was Zhu Hexian or Zhang Weishan, as well as all the various forces of Diyuan City, they were actually all here because of Ling Han's reputation. Thus, as long as he could capture Ling Han, he would be able to use him as a hostage and escape from the encirclement. Once he was out of danger, he would naturally kill Ling Han with a single slap. That way, he would be able to exact his vengeance, and would never return in this lifetime. Today is the day of your death." Ling Han gave a long whistle and waved his sword repeatedly, his sword chi like a rainbow. However, his power was still much weaker than Cheng Jiyu's. When he was struck by one of Cheng Jiyu's gigantic hands of origin power, his internal organs were shaken, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he had already cultivated the body of dead tree, and also had the indestructible heaven scroll to heal his wounds. Although he appeared to be in a terrible state, in truth, he had completely activated Lone Wolf's blood, and his power continued to increase. However, no matter how much his power increased, he would not be able to break through the barrier of gushing spring tier. Ling Han frowned. The space in his dantian was now extraordinarily large, and his ability to fight a prolonged battle was astonishing. Added with the recovery ability of the indestructible heaven scroll, he was completely capable of exhausting Cheng Jiyu to death. But now he was doing this for the sake of revenge, and had to drag things out for such a long time. He could not wait, and neither could Ling Dongxing. Moreover, he did not want to make Ling Dongxing worry. Then Ling Han's eyes sharpened, and he did not hesitate to communicate with the Black Tower. He wanted to borrow the power of the Black Tower to strengthen himself, and increase his battle prowess by a whole tier. "Black Tower, come give me power." Wang, inside his dantian, the Black Tower trembled lightly, and released a mysterious power. Hong! This power surged within Ling Han's body, causing his cultivation level to rise rapidly. 5th layer of Pali, 6th layer, 7th layer in the time of a single breath, he had broken through to gushing spring tier, and continued to rise, only stopping when he reached the 4th layer of gushing spring tier. He had completely increased his cultivation level by a whole tier. What? Sensing the explosive increase in Ling Han's aura, Cheng Jiyu, Zhu Hexian, and Zhang Weishan's eyes all widened in shock. How could this be possible? A martial artist in the 4th layer of Pali had actually instantly increased his power by a whole tier, as expected of a genius in alchemy. Zhu Hexian and Zhang Weishan were immediately sure that Ling Han had eaten some kind of alchemical pill to obtain such an increase in power, and could not help but feel even more admiration towards Ling Han's skill in alchemy. As for whether there was such an alchemical pill in this world, the two old men did not doubt it at all. They already had blind faith in Ling Han's ability in alchemy. Damn it! Cheng Jiyu roared, and clapped his hands repeatedly. One after another, large hands of origin power appeared, slapping towards Ling Han. Ling Han humphed, clenched his left hand into a fist and punched out. He had only increased his power to the level of gushing spring tier, and was unable to release his origin power outwards. But that did not matter. The power of the 4th layer of gushing spring tier completely suppressed the power of the 1st layer, and with a single punch, the green-colored large hands of origin power immediately shattered. Ling Han had already arrived. With a wave of his sword, 5 flashes of sword chi shot out. Pooh! 5 sword wounds instantly appeared on Chang Jiyu's chest, causing his flesh to become a bloody mess. Even his bones and internal organs could be vaguely seen. "Old dog, hand over your life," Ling Han said darkly. "Little bastard, you've only forcibly increased your power to gushing spring tier. How much power can you unleash? I'll definitely be able to kill you." Chang Jiyu released a furious roar of indignation. His hands moved, and he used the secret technique of the Chung family, full arm fist. Unfortunately, though he had broken through to gushing spring tier and could cultivate black-grade martial arts techniques, the problem was the Chung family did not even have a yellow-grade high-level martial arts technique, so where would they get a black-grade martial arts technique? This full arm fist was only a yellow-grade middle-level martial arts technique, so its power was limited. It was completely insufficient to make up for the gap between the first layer of gushing spring tier and the 4th layer of gushing spring tier. Ling Han smirked coldly. If a normal martial artist forcibly increased the power of a whole tier, it would indeed be impossible for them to control such a shocking power, because the increase in power was really too great. But he was different. He had been in heaven tier in his last life, so what could the 4th layer of gushing spring tier do? Ling Han brandished his sword in a powerful attack. His sword chi was like a rainbow, completely suppressing Chang Jiyu. 4th layer of gushing spring tier against 1st layer was already an absolute suppression. Pung! Ling Han's foot flew up and landed a kick on Chang Jiyu's chest. Ka ka ka, the sound of bones breaking was heard. At least 4 of Chang Jiyu's ribs were broken, and his dantian was directly shattered from the kick. He slid down to the ground in front of Ling Dongxing. "Kneel!" Ling Han said coldly. "Bullshit!" Chang Jiyu shouted angrily. Even if he died, he would never lower his head. "It's not up to you to decide." Ling Han brandished his sword. Poo pew, 2 spurts of blood sprayed out. The tendons in Chang Jiyu's legs had been severed, and he had no choice but to kneel down in front of Ling Dongxing. "Little beast, even if I become a ghost, I will not forgive you." Chang Jiyu spat out blood. He knew that he would not be able to escape death today, so he did not even have the thought of begging for mercy. His eyes were like knives, wanting nothing more than to stab Ling Han to death. "Father, I'll leave this person to you." Ling Han calmed down. He knew that Ling Dongxing wanted to kill this enemy with his own hands even more. "All right." Ling Dongxing's face was filled with killing intent. He thought of the clansmen who had been killed right in front of him, like livestock, their blood staining the entire Ling family's manor red, and corpses everywhere. His eyes immediately turned red, and he took the sword that Ling Han handed over and stabbed. Pooh! The sharp sword pierced into his chest, and Chang Jiyu glared at Ling Dongxing in indignation. His mouth opened and closed, as if he wanted to say something, but only blood gurgled out of his mouth. His head tilted to the side and he died just like that. Ling Dongxing kicked Chang Jiyu's corpse into the air, and let out a furious roar towards the skies. From now on, there would no longer be a Chung family in Grey Cloud Town. Chapter 87. There were a few female members of the discipline committee, and before they left, they all gazed at Ling Han with tenderness in their eyes. To them, this was definitely a wealthy son-in-law. Even the 3rd imperial prince was able to order him around, and there were only a few like him in the whole of Rain country. If they could get their hands on such a Prince Charming, then their life would be worth it. "Brother Ling, I really did not think that you would actually have such achievements in alchemy. Even Grandmaster Fu is filled with admiration for you," the 3rd imperial prince said to Ling Han with a smile after everyone had left. He had caught up to Ling Han yesterday, and had even given him a keepsake. That was because he thought that Fu Yuansheng valued Ling Han very much, but in truth he knew absolutely nothing about Ling Han. But after that, he had gone to visit Fu Yuansheng, and asked about Ling Han in a roundabout way. Though Fu Yuansheng did not explain in detail, just a few words were enough to make the 3rd imperial prince's heart tremble. Thus, after a mere night, he immediately came to visit Ling Han. For someone like him who had aspired to become an emperor, Ling Han was really too valuable a resource. In truth, he still did not know that Wu Songlin had actually also been won over by Ling Han. Otherwise, he would definitely be even more shocked and would value Ling Han even more. Ling Han only smiled faintly. He was only a prince of a small country, so he was naturally not worthy of his attention. However, since his present abilities were still not very strong, there was no harm in borrowing the power of this prince. At most, he would help him ascend to the throne in future, and return this favor. A person like the third imperial prince was naturally eloquent. He adjusted the atmosphere, and kept the conversation between the two of them in a relaxed and pleasant atmosphere. At the end, he bid farewell and left. This friendship naturally could not be forged in a single day. At noon, Wu Songlin came running over, and handed over 10 silver notes with the denomination of 1,000,000 silver coins. Many thanks, young Master Han. Wu Songlin's face was filled with gratitude. If those who did not know better had heard this, they would definitely be completely confused, wondering if Wu Songlin's brain had gone haywire. What kind of person would give money and still say thanks? But to Wu Songlin, the value of that major origin spirit replenishing technique could not be measured with money. Even if the price was 100 million or a billion, he would still think of a way to gather the money. Ling Han unceremoniously put away the silver notes. He was indeed in need of money at present, and this major origin spirit replenishing technique was indeed worth this price. Moreover, money could only be used at a lower cultivation level. When one reached the flower blossom tier, who would still use worldly objects like gold and silver? However, money was still quite useful at present, so Ling Han smiled in satisfaction. Seeing this, Wu Songlin naturally took the opportunity to ask Ling Han for guidance. Ling Han casually gave him a few pointers. Being able to become a black-grade high-level alchemist, Wu Songlin's aptitude was not bad. There were many principles and crucial points that he could understand with just a few pointers. Otherwise, Ling Han really would not have the patience to teach him. Wu Songlin had just left when Lu Yutong arrived with Ling Zixian in tow. Ling Han did not bother to run out to eat, so he used the ingredients in the house to prepare lunch. Because there was a super glutton with them, the amount of food they cooked was also extremely shocking. Those who did not know would think that it was a happy occasion. "I'm sorry," Lu Yutong suddenly said. "Why do you suddenly say that?" Ling Han did not take it to heart, and asked casually. "That Chen Yunxiang has some background, so I was not able to take him down." "Who?" Ling Han turned his head and asked. Lu Yutong could not help but slap her forehead with her hand, and said, "You are really a little forgetful. Could it be that you have forgotten that there was an old guy who wanted to snatch Xian Xian and Hu Niu 2 days ago?" Oh, Ling Han remembered. He had not taken this kind of minor character to heart at all. At that time, since Lu Yutong had said that he would leave it to her to deal with, he had naturally forgotten about this old lecher. He had never thought that even with the power of the Lu clan, they would not be able to deal with him. "Xiang has a daughter who is Sun Ziyan's concubine," Lu Yutong explained. "Sun Ziyan." Ling Han could not help but laugh. How could there be someone who would give himself such a name? Was he not afraid that others would call him grandson? The Sun clan is one of the 8 great clans of the imperial city, and Sun Ziyan is one of the most outstanding members of the younger generation of the Sun clan. He should be 25 years old this year, and has just broken through to Gushing Spring tier. He is very valued by the Sun clan, Lu Yutong said. Thus, the Lu clan does not want to become enemies with the Sun clan, and did not pursue the matter any further, Ling Han continued. Lu Yutong sighed and said, "That is indeed the case. Sun Ziyan dotes on Xiang's daughter very much, and the clan had just made a move against the Cheng clan when Chen Yunxiang went to look for the Sun clan. With Sun Ziyan personally appearing, Chen Yunxiang was saved." Ling Han gave Eno. No wonder Chen Yunxiang dared to collude with the Earth and Water faction to kidnap someone. As it turned out, not only was he extremely daring and lust, he also had the support of the Sun clan behind him. Even if something happened, there would be someone to cover for him. Since the Lu clan cannot touch him, then let me do it myself, Ling Han said. In any case, in his eyes, Chen Yunxiang was no different from a flea, and he could be killed with a casual stomp. Lu Yutong looked very ashamed. She had obviously taken charge of this matter, but in the end, she had not managed to accomplish it. "Ha ha ha, don't be so dejected. You're obviously a great beauty, so give me a smile," Ling Han said with a laugh. Lu Yutong did not laugh, but Hu Niu did. Her mouth was currently stuffed full of meat, so when she laughed, she would not even be able to see her teeth. With a piuchi sound, seeing her like this, both Lu Yutong and Ling Zixian began to laugh loudly. You two are currently eating? A pleasant and gentle voice rang out, and an incredibly beautiful figure walked in. With every step she took, lotuses bloomed in her wake, and her beauty was astonishing. Li Xichan. Lu Yutong was very surprised. She had never thought that she would meet her here. Lu Yutong. Li Xichan was also a little surprised. The noble daughter of the Lu clan was actually sitting and eating together with Ling Han. If word of this spread out, no one would believe it. Who did not know that Lu Yutong was usually an icy beauty? It was really unimaginable that she would be so intimate with a man. Oh, so you two know each other. That's good, that saves me the trouble of introducing you, Ling Han said with a smile. Lu Yutong looked at Li Xichan, and Li Xichan also looked at Lu Yutong. In the eyes of these two exquisite beauties, there was a faint flame of battle flickering. Although they were called the twin pearls of exquisite beauty, in truth, they did not have much of a friendship. It was only because they were both too beautiful, and added with the fact that one had outstanding talent in martial arts, while the other had a shocking performance in alchemy, that they were called the same by others. They were both intelligent people, being able to sense each other's presence in Ling Han's residence. What did this mean? For some reason, they both felt a little sour in their hearts. Have you eaten? Ling Han asked Li Xichan. Li Xichan had obviously already eaten, but when the words were on the tip of her tongue, they immediately changed. Then let's eat together, Ling Han said with a smile. Li Xichan did not hesitate to sit down, took a pair of chopsticks and a bowl and slowly ate. Oh, that's right. Did you come looking for me? Ling Han asked. Oh, I specifically came to inform you. A few days ago there was a small earthquake, and an underground river appeared. There was actually an ancient spirit tool that floated out along the river. Li Xichan told him a big piece of news. Reading on a cell phone was more refreshing.